Big show coming up this week on the Markcast. All of your alt football news, USFL, CFL, fan control football even, on a very decidedly pro-USFL podcast. We are a pro-USFL podcast this week. Lots of stuff to break down. The USFL has released their rule book. We have players arriving in Birmingham for training camps, and there is more legal opposition against the USFL. They just won't leave the USFL alone. They're just kicking them when they're down. We're going to break down all of that stuff. Lots of intrigue and excitement. Excited to talk about all of that stuff. Big guest list this week. We have friend of the show, your friend and mine, Farhan Lalji, coming on. CFL insider from TSN. We are talking USFL. What effects will that have on the CFL? We are also saving the CFL game. Are we moving to 4 downs? Are we moving to 5 downs? We get all of Farhan's thoughts.
Well, it's part of a process the league is going through right now called product review, right? Ultimately, I think when you have something like a lost season due to COVID, and in some other sports, it might be a lockout, right? I mean, the NHL went through this, Major League Baseball has gone through this, that when you lose seasons or an epic period of time, you want to come out of it slightly different, right? To give fans something else to talk about besides what was lost. And, there's been a 5-year downward trend in scoring in the CFL. And last year, the games just weren't entertaining relative to what we're used to seeing.
And then Andrew Murray from CFL and XFL News Hub is coming on the show. We're breaking down and dissecting all of the United States Football League news this week, the USFL Rulebook, the players arriving in Birmingham, the new lawsuit opposition, everything about that.
I'm sure you have seen, Reed, obviously all of these camps and the Spring League circles seem to become divided and sort of huddled in their own areas. There's not always a lot of crossover as far as people who are interested in these leagues or want to support these leagues all the time.
And then courtesy of the Montreal Alouettes, we have CFL All-Star running back William Stanback coming on the show. William is training in Georgia. He is preparing for the season, and we are very excited to have him on.
Me speaking from the offensive side of the ball, I'm with my brothers again. And we ready to ride, we ready to rock. Anybody that's in our way, we just gonna have to stomp all over them.
Hey guys, Reed here. Welcome to the Markcast. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Lots of USFL stuff in the news. The players have arrived in Birmingham. We have the USFL Rulebook we're going to be talking about. We have another legal opposition to the USFL. They just won't leave the USFL alone. We're going to be talking about all of that. We have a lot of CFL stuff as well. We're continuing to save the CFL game. So I really appreciate everyone coming by today. If you are watching on YouTube, you'll notice I have a new widescreen video camera. I finally decided it was time to upgrade. I am a professional videographer by trade, and so I thought it was downright time to make some upgrades to the Markcast studio. You'll also notice a few graphics tweaks and things like that on the YouTube channel. From now on, if you go to themarkcast.com/watch, that's going to take you to our YouTube page. If you go to the markcast.com/listen, that is going to take you to the Spreaker page where you can go. Got the Apple Podcast link, Spotify, kind of all those other things, iHeartRadio. Trying to build the audio downloads as well. So if you're an audio listener, if you're a video listener, we have those links set up. Big show today. Please like and subscribe. We're so close to hitting 2,000. We're hovering at that 1,900 mark, trying to hit 2,000 subscribers before we have our big live show in Birmingham here coming up for the USFL kickoff in a couple of weeks. I did a post this week. I showed a lot of the different items we're going to be giving away for the giveaway, our Royal Retros custom jersey that we're going to be raffling off, as well as the AAF jersey, a lot of CFL Grey Cup merch. So if you don't follow us on social media, you can go to the links on there as well, at @the_Markcast. But really trying to build drum the excitement, trying to build momentum here heading into the USFL kickoff. Now that that's out of the way, big show, all-star guest, big time. Really excited to have Farhan Lalji come back on the show from TSN. Farhan was on our big Grey Cup live show. Farhan, CFL insider, lots of thoughts about the USFL as well. Really excited to have Farhan on the show. There's been a lot of debate on CFL Twitter and everything the last couple of weeks, moving to 4 downs, fixing the CFL game. What does that all mean? Where would Farhan like to see the changes go about? He is great. Also thoughts about the USFL as well. Quarterback play. Are quarterbacks more likely to go to the USFL or the CFL? How are they going to compete with that? And what are CFL insiders kind of up north of the border? What are they saying about the USFL? Do they think it's going to survive? Lots of good insights from Farhan. Then we have Andrew Murray coming on the show. Andrew writes for XFL and CFL News Hub. Really excited. Andrew was part of our USFL supplemental draft live stream a couple weeks ago. We're going to be breaking down the USFL Rulebook, all the little tweaks and changes. Overwhelmingly positive, I think, for the USFL Rulebook release this week. Really excited to dive in with Andrew, get his thoughts on that. Also updating the already existing USFL, the real USFL lawsuit versus the Fox USFL. We have some court updates and timelines for that. There is also new legal opposition against the USFL as well in the form of the Carolina Panthers. They just kicking the USFL when it's down. So I'm excited to kind of update you guys on all of that. And I also want to talk with Andrew about Fan Control Football. They've released a lot of their ticketing information and game schedules and kind of all that stuff. Their players, believe it or not, are also in training camps as well because they are kicking off the same day as the United States Football League of April 16th. So really excited to talk with Andrew about all of that stuff, break down all your USFL news. And then we have William Stanback coming on the show, courtesy of the Montreal Alouettes. Really appreciate them kind of setting all that up. Really excited to talk with William. He's one of the all-star, running backs of the league, big star, big, performs on the field, really personable guy. Excited to talk with William. He's in the off-season training, kind of getting ready. Sounds like he's going to be coming out to the West Coast to hang out with friend of the show, Vernon Adams. That's his quarterback for the Alouettes. So, maybe we'll have to do like a picnic or some sort of, I don't know what we'll do, a get together, but maybe I told him to give me a call. So, hopefully can kind of start building some relations that way, throw the pigskin around with Vernon and William. That would be a lot of fun. I think I'm going to hit all of the news stuff today unless the world explodes with all of our guests. So I'll probably just hop on at the end of the show and kind of let you know what's coming up next week. But again, please like and subscribe. Lots of work. Everyone, Farhan coming on. He's driving down to Seattle later today because his son's playing football. A lot of people taking time out of their day to come on the show to help kind of round out our education of everything and fill us in. So really appreciate everyone's time. Farhan, Andrew, and William. All of you all for listening and watching. I'll be back at the end of the show to let you know what's coming up. Thanks. Well, I have not talked to our wonderful guest here since we were partying hardy up in Hamilton and you were on our big Grey Cup live show. How are you doing?
I am good. That was a fun show. I can't remember what bar we were in, but that was a good one. Actually, having you at the FRC suite with your gal, that was a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, so we have Farhan here today. Thank you so much for coming on. We were originally going to have you on to talk USFL stuff, which we're going to talk about, but now pure chaos, right, in the Canadian football Twitters and everything. What has been your take the last week or two with kind of all of this talk about 3 downs and 4 downs and growing the game and everything else?
Well, it's part of a process the league is going through right now called product review, right? And, ultimately, I think when you have something like a lost season due to COVID, and in some other sports, it might be a lockout, right? I mean, the NHL went through this, and Major League Baseball has gone through this, that when you lose seasons or an epic period of time, you want to come out of it slightly different, right? To give fans something else to talk about besides what was lost. And, there's been a 5-year downward trend in scoring in the CFL. And last year, the games just weren't entertaining relative to what we're used to seeing. And so I think the league wants to make sure that what can we do to tweak this? Now, there's a number of reasons for it. If you're the football group, if you're the football ops guys, the coaches and GMs, generally you're thinking, can you business guys just go shut up, work in a corner, figure out the marketing and leave us alone? Don't mess with the game, right? Like you're not doing a good enough job on marketing and now you're trying to change the game. And then, the marketing guys and the business guys think the football ops guys are the last people you want to ask about growing the game, right? Because they've got a completely different agenda. So product review is a thing. And Dave and I talked about this at Grey Cup, that everything was on the table, including 4 downs. And that offended a lot of people. And now this particular week, we're going through meetings. The CFL Combine is this weekend. And because everybody's going to be in town, they use this week as an opportunity to have rules committee meetings, board of governor meetings, owner meetings, all those types of things. So a lot of decisions get made this week. And there's been a lot on the table. 4 downs has been on the table. 11-man football has been on the table. Something's a lot smaller, like moving the hash marks in, maybe taking the field from 110 yards, bringing it down to 100 yards, adjusting the timing rules because the games are so long. There's a number of different things they're looking at. And, whenever you put that out there, Canadian football Twitter, and you know this, right? Like, they don't want to hear that. Don't touch my precious game. Everybody's got a lot of emotion invested into it and a lot of nationalistic pride invested into it. I'm not one of those, right? To me, I want to look at every solution and every situation in and of itself. Try to be pragmatic about it. Is there an issue? In my opinion, yeah, there is. Now, there's a number of reasons for it. Not all about the rules, but sometimes the rules could accelerate fixing it or improving it or whatever verb you want to use. So I think that it's a good thing, just the process. I think that product review idea is a good thing. I think people should look at every rule and not say it's not Canadian or it's too much like the NFL. Might it work? Just think about it as a football person if you're a fan and give it a chance.
Yeah, it's hard, and I know people like you coming on this show and other longer form podcasts. You guys do your great hits and stuff, but it's really being able to kind of flesh out stuff on here, right? And longer than kind of a 1.5, 2 minute take will be on TV. I mean, what do you think about 3 downs, 4 downs? I know we talked. I can't even. I mean, that Grey Cup weekend was such a haze, but I mean, where do you land on this as someone that's covered the game?
I love the NFL and I love the NCAA, but I don't think 4 downs is the right thing for this game. Now, if you decide to adopt all the rules, okay, that's a separate case altogether. But I don't think putting a 4th down into all the other Canadian rules makes a lot of sense, right? So people up here who don't quite get the NFL will say, well, it's a running league because you've got 4 downs. Actually, it's not. Because of the small field size, teams are realizing through analytics that the most efficient and effective way to move the football is by throwing it. So how do we do that with this small field? Well, they try to create matchups and they try to create space by shifting and motioning and doing different things. And they do all of that to make it more of a pass-happy game. Up here with the big field and all the motion and the extra yard off the ball, I don't think that works up here. I think if you put a 4th down in, coaches by their nature are going to get conservative. And they are going. They've admitted this to me. Most of the coaches I've spoken to, yeah, we're going to run the football, right? Because here's the thing: a coach's job is not to entertain. A coach's job is not to grow the game. And quite frankly, in most cases, a coach's job is not even to win. A coach's job is to stay employed, right? So if you ask a defensive coordinator, what would you prefer, a 50-49 win or a 17-16 loss? Most of them, if the camera's not on, would tell you they'd prefer that loss because their defense played great. And it'd be the opposite for an offensive coordinator. The head coach is probably the one guy that has to rely on wins and losses, right? So for the rest of the guys, they've got a completely different agenda, right? So if they think that percentages will dictate, they can go 3.5 yards, 3.5 yards, 3 yards and get a first down. That's what they're going to do. And they're not going to risk the game by opening it up as much. So I think the wide field in that yard makes it so much more forgiving to run the ball relative to the NFL game, right? So, yeah, Pete Carroll likes to run the ball. And if you've got Derrick Henry in your backfield, you like to run the ball. But most teams in the NFL want to throw it, right? But up here, if you change the rules to 4 downs, teams will want to run it. And I don't like that. Will it eliminate as many punts? Sure. Create more first downs in some form of game flow? Sure. But in terms of that entertaining, wide-open pass it style we like, not so much. I don't like it up here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a myth now that the NFL is like this run-happy league. I mean, it's really not.
Yeah, but there's old Canadians that they don't buy it. They still come up with those same antiquated arguments.
Yeah, I mean,
you're right.
Even this week, they were getting ready. We're talking drafts. So I watch a lot of NFL stuff too, and they're talking getting ready for the draft, and they're like, "Well, running backs, like, who even needs those anymore?" Right? I mean, it's almost like unless you
won't see one taken in the first round, right? Because it's the most disposable position in football.
So, I mean, what do we do then? Because, and even if you change to 4 downs, I mean, it's still the same marketing and league structure and Stephen Lee Olsen, what's your man? I mean, it's still all of the things that kind of like go with the CFL. I just don't, making it blue, not green or whatever isn't going to fix all these other issues.
Well, yeah, you're right. So first and foremost, the business side of the game needs to improve. There's no doubt. They need to find different ways to engage fans and present the product. And I think the Genius Sports deal is going to do a lot to help in that area. Now, that's not an immediate play, right? But talking to people around the league, I think when they look at the collective losses that the 9 teams in the league itself deals with on an annual basis, I think there's a real positive belief, a lot of optimism that in the next 2 to 3 years, that big number will get eliminated based on some of the things that Genius Sports and single game sports betting and the two of those together are going to be able to provide. And the one thing about Genius that really matters to the CFL and why they were able to give them an equity share in CFL Ventures, right, is because Genius has the ability not only to provide the ideas, but to have the manpower to execute them. Because that's one thing the CFL head office doesn't have. Yes, the teams are going to have to do a certain amount, right? But Genius is going to be able to execute, and they're motivated to execute because of that equity share, and because I think they want to use the CFL as a bit of a model that they can then take to other businesses and other leagues and say, look, this is what we did here. We can do this for you. So, so I'm encouraged that that's headed in the right direction. The CBA, the two sides, having spoken to both, they're in a really good place compared to other years. And I think that's going to also allow them to grow the game. But I do think that trying to tweak it matters, because one of the things that's happening is we're not getting the level of quarterbacks that we've had here before, right? If you look at the quarterbacks in this league today versus the quarterbacks in this league 10 years ago, now, yeah, these guys may get to that point, but right now the quarterback play is not good. Some will say it's because they had the year off. That's part of it. But it's also the type of quarterback the CFL used to get. Those guys are not getting NFL opportunities, right? So, and now you've got the competitive leagues like the USFL and the XFL that are going to come. They're going to take some of those guys as well. So you don't want this to be a third tier quarterback league. So that's part of it. But are there some things you can do? Can you tweak the hash marks a bit so that you can create more space in certain parts of the field? Can you shrink the field? Because one of the problems with the CFL is not the problems. One of the things with the CFL, it's really a field position game, right? Like if you start deep in your own end, even if you get 3 downs and punt the ball, you can flip the field. And that's such a strategic element of the game. Well, I think that nuance is lost on a lot of new fans. So if you shrink the field by 10 yards, maybe it becomes less of a field position game. Maybe teams don't try to punt the ball from midfield rather than attempting that long field goal, which could lead to that exciting return. They're going to try to pin you deep and force you to go 100 yards. Shorter field, maybe that doesn't happen as much, right? So are there little tweaks we can do to the game that don't fundamentally alter it that could help improve the offensive product and maybe help accelerate quarterback development, right? So there's a bunch of things there. The salary cap. You could have a minimum quarterback salary. I'm all for it. I think there should be a maximum and a minimum quarterback salary, just so we can get some better ones in, and they have to look longer and not just look at the USFL and the XFL. So it's a multi-layered solution, and I think we got to look at every layer.
It's hard too, because any of these things, right, it's going to take years to kind of like I worry, and I saw, with Commissioner Ambrosi was out, in Calgary talking. I just wonder, like, okay, we can better target demographic ads or whatever, but is there just like a funk on the CFL now that people are like, well, that's my grandpa's league, or I just worry about that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like that's what it's been to this point. But do you want to give in? Yep. Because if that's the problem and there's no solution, then let's give in, right? Like you have to still keep pushing. So whether it's the international side of it and they're trying to do the global piece, right? Whether they're trying to look at some of these different ways to market and engage and present the product, I think you got to do that because when I look at, I use my son as an example all the time, right? And I say that because I think he's a kid that could be had because he loves football, right? And he doesn't love the NFL because it's the NFL. He loves the NFL because he was introduced to the game on Madden, right? And he plays Madden. And so that's what he sees. And, he'll see different posts on social media platforms because he's on TikTok and he's on Instagram and, he's on Snapchat and some of these other things. So he sees stuff. And this is how he consumes his world, right? Because he comes down to Seattle with me twice a week to do football training. We go to FSP and he does training. We got an hour 45 each way in the car, right? If he and I don't talk, like if I don't initiate the conversation because he's 13, he could spend the entire drive in both directions on a platform, on something, consuming something. So how do we get the CFL into his consumables, right? And so we've got to find ways to do that because that kid could be had. If you put something on where he's looking and he's just like, oh, that's cool. If you can do that, if you can make it cool for him, and that's the challenge that the league and Genius and everybody has, but there's got to be a way. because, esports has done it, right? UFC has done it. There's so many other entities that have come out of nowhere. We talk about things like college football and how it's tradition and it takes you forever to build tradition. These guys have built it like this, right? Like if the USFL or the XFL all of a sudden can find something like that and capture it, whether it's through The Rock or through, pick your idea, it's available, right? Like kids can be fooled. And, we've got single game betting, and we've got fantasy and all these things. That's how 20 and 30-year-olds consume the game. One of my buddies, Thomas Drance, who I host another podcast with, God bless him. He's a hockey fiend, right? Like he knows hockey through the analytics side like nobody's business. We're at games and he's managing his college basketball bets. This guy knew nothing about college basketball till he decided to start betting on college basketball. And he doesn't bet huge amounts, but he's engaged, right? And this is an older guy he's not older than me, but he's in his 30s, and the CFL could get him if all of a sudden they made betting, sexier. They were able to reach him on that side of it. So I think there's a way. I'm not willing to give in.
No, I agree with that. I mean, that's because what are we all doing here? But
right.
We were just talking in our XFL News Hub, whatever chat yesterday that, the NFL ratings are going to be off the roof this year, with all the intrigue and the offseason, because we talk about, right, okay, sports and people don't like modern, we're trying to like Nickelodeon the games down here, right, to make it more appealing to kids. But here at the NFL, I mean, it's been the craziest last 2-3 weeks that's ever been in the offseason.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, and it's funny because up here, we hate that, right? Like the one game or the 1 year contract is a real issue. And both the league and the PA have said, we understand player continuity is a problem. How do we fix it? So, I do think there's a middle ground, right? Because you look at a guy like Tyreek Hill who gets moved. He's been with Kansas City for a period of time. Russell Wilson was with Seattle for a period of time. So these guys established themselves as big time stars, and then they moved, as opposed to here, you get, constant movement, which isn't good. But, like I said to our guys, that free agency is not a brutal thing because the level of engagement that Naylor and I and others, the 3 down guys that they got during the week leading up to it and on the day of, like that's good for the league, right? So how do we find a way to maybe cut that down by 50%, where you could still have, instead of 80% of the rosters turning over, if we could have 40% and only, instead of 50% of the big names turning over, we could have 10% or something like that. There's probably a way to do it to make it even bigger, not based on volume, but based on quality. But you're right. I mean, what the NFL has done, people are going to be all over it, and they'll be engaged at the start because they'll want to see what that guy looks like in that uniform, what kind of chemistry he has with that quarterback. How does it affect me from a betting perspective, right? I'm going to do something at the beginning of the year because I got these odds, but after week 1, those odds could change big time, right? Based on, that didn't look good. Like Tua's got Tyreek, well, he still can't play, and I like Tua. I think you'll be able to play, but you might be bullish on the Dolphins until week 1, right? So we've got to find ways to, engage Canadians and even engage the current fans, right? Because the current fans, they come to games and they may or may not buy season tickets, but are they watching every game, right? Or are they only watching their home market? Things like that, right? Like we could do more to engage even the hardcores than we currently do.
It is weird that what is like applauded here with all these moves and everything, like you said, when all that was happening, a month ago in the CFL, it was like, oh, see, this is a problem with the league. And then here, I mean, every day it was like eating popcorn. Okay, who's moving here? What's moving there? And
right.
It's weird that it's celebrated in one and not in the other as much.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because the stars aren't as big because they don't get paid as much or because they don't stay as long, right? So certainly Jeremiah Masoli, where he was going to land was a big deal, right? When you look at the receiver market and how that spiked and what was going to happen, BC and Edmonton are trying to pay, up to $300,000 for a receiver and, things like that, right? Like, so there was certainly a level of intrigue around selected guys, right? So, if we can do a better job at making stars, and some of that is, again, don't have them in your market for 2 years, have them in your market for 5 before they move, but can we do more to put those stars on platforms that people see? And if we can do those things and make the stars, then when they do move, because they price themselves out of a situation, then it's a bigger deal, right?
Side note, what do you think of Edmonton having this receiving core for Nick Arbuckle and like really spending? I mean, it feels like you got the sports car parked in the maybe not the $1 million. I don't know. What do you think about that? It's fascinating there.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And, they've got some good pieces and they're spending a lot of money, but you better have a guy that can pull the trigger and find them, right? And, their offensive line is good, not elite. They're serviceable as I see the group. And defensively, they lost some pieces, right? But I think they wanted to rebuild there because that was really important for Chris Jones because he runs a specific defense and you got to build it around him. But this whole deal comes around the quarterback, right? And, Stephen McAdoo, there's mixed reviews on him, right? Certainly Chris Jones is a huge proponent of him as an offensive coordinator, feels he got a lot out of Cody Fajardo. What's he going to get out of Nick Arbuckle? What's he going to get out of JT Barrett? What's he going to get out of Taylor Cornelius? Because I think they really like Barrett. Even though he's had no mileage for a long period of time, I think they really like Barrett, and he's going to get every opportunity. I think all three of them are going to go early and get an early opportunity to start. I think in Arbuckle's case, if he doesn't win the starting job, I think he probably gets cut because of his salary. But, I do think he'll get an opportunity. But, we'll see if one of these guys can figure it out. But otherwise you're going to have a lot of unhappy receivers begging for the football. And these are all one-year contracts essentially, right? So, or at least non-guaranteed deals. You have a bad year, even if it's the quarterback's fault, no one's going to pay you that the next year.
No. Talking about that, talking about the quarterbacks and stuff, right? I wanted to get your thoughts on USFL. A lot was made. They had the draft, right? Like we had the Shea Patterson come in, right? We had the Paxton Lynch come in, right? People that maybe had been around the CFL. And I was curious, like, okay, is that good or bad for the USFL, right? To be having some of your premier, right, teams and premier quarterbacks be guys that maybe weren't wanted in the CFL or didn't get. I mean, what do you make of the USFL in general? And then I want to deep dive just a little bit.
Well, I like what they're doing from a business perspective, keeping it all in one place, eliminating the travel costs. This is supposed to be a TV product. It's not a fan product. It's being based on television, and then eventually it could grow, if it works. But so it's an interesting business model from that perspective, and it's good. They've got a lot of credible coaches. But yeah, it comes down to quarterback play, and I don't think the XFL had great quarterback play the last time, right? They had a couple guys that became serviceable, right? And John Wolford got an opportunity, and Taylor Heineke got an opportunity, but like they had a couple guys. But by and large, I don't think the quarterback play in that league was very good, right? And I think that that was evident if you watch the games. It got a little bit better, but just a couple of guys got a little bit better, right? So, but I also understand what they're doing and trying to get a few names that people might recognize, like Paxton Lynch. And when those guys come up here, people talk about the single biggest thing that quarterbacks have to adjust to, and it's that extra defender. The play clock is hard. The motion is hard. There's an adjustment to all of it. But if you ask any of them, they'll tell you it's that extra guy. And Paxton Lynch was no different, right? So he'll go down and Patterson will go down and they'll, we'll see if they can figure it out, because at least the game is what they're used to seeing. And if I'm a quarterback, I'd go to that league before I go to the Canadian Football League, right? And this is the thing the CFL will have to deal with, is that, just being there, just being around and being talked about by ESPN or NBC or Fox or whoever's got the TV deal, and just being there in the mix, it does matter, right? Like the league's not better. The quality of play is not better. It wasn't in the XFL, and I don't imagine it will be in the USFL. But just the fact that you're there will matter. And for a quarterback, the fact that it's the same game matters. You don't have to learn a new game. You can stay here. You've got 1 year flexibility on your deal. And so that's something the CFL's got to deal with, right? Like, they've got to do something, whether it's salary-wise or what have you, but they've got to make this league more advantageous for quarterbacks to come here and not go to one of those second-tier leagues there.
It's hard because it's we were talking at the top, the Canadian League, so proud of the rules, right? Everything, but it's just such a harder learning curve to come in, like you said, especially for quarterbacks. But so it's like, generally if you're trying to entice someone to your thing, right, that maybe isn't as big as the NFL, right? You adapt a little bit to the NFL, but the CFL is like, no, like this is our thing. Like you're going to come figure it out. Yeah. It's it's an interesting play.
Well, it's the way it's always been, right? And people have always been proud of the rules of the league, like you say, and there is a different style to it. And it's also given an opportunity for quarterbacks that didn't get previous opportunities in the NFL to come, right? And show their skill set, because maybe they were a little more dynamic and they could run around a little more and create space, because there's so much space out there, but create space for themselves to use that space. And, guys come in and, number one, you got to respect the league when you get here, right? If you're one of those guys like Chad Kelly, And Chad Kelly's got a lot of physical tools and he's impressed the people in Toronto, but he's come up here and like, I want to be the next Doug Flutie and I'm going to, the implication was he would be that right out of the gate. Well, you better respect the league and the quality of the players that are in it. And if you do, when you come in, you start to simplify it for yourself and you just say, okay, look, I can't do all this, but I can kind of function with this part of the game. I can throw these balls and not think about the entire field and think about this half for a little bit until I get more comfortable and then learn the game like you were when you were young, right? Instead of come in and say, I've paid all my dues. I was a big time D1 guy and I can do it all here, So if you do that, you have the opportunity to have some success. But, there will be quarterbacks that just say, no, I don't want to do that. There's a simple alternative for me here and I'd rather go there. And it's hard to blame them, right? So I don't know that you're going to get wholesale changes just because of the quarterback. If there's a bigger business case to be made for it, at some point it may get to that. But, can they make some tweaks to this game to make it easier for quarterbacks to adjust? We'll find out because that's what they're looking at right now.
What do you hear? Lots have made, like 3 down. People talking that the USFL is not even going to kick off or they're not even going to make whatever. I taught, we had Darren Gill on the show. He talked about how some of his players opted out of CFL contracts to go to the USFL. Mm-hmm. So, what do you hear? What's the chatter that Farhan hears?
Yeah, there are players that choose to go do that. And the reason they do that is because of flexibility, right? Because right now you can get out of a 1-year deal. Here you can do it, but not on your rookie deal, right? So your rookie deal, you're bound for a little bit, but then everything else is a window that you can then go explore after every year. So, they're going through a CBA process. If that changes, that everybody gets the opportunity to do that, I think you'll see less. The one eyebrow raiser was Liam Dobson, the Winnipeg offensive lineman who chose to take a USFL deal. And that surprised some people because if other players that are Canadian choose to do that, now you're going to get into trouble because the ratio is something that constantly gets debated up here. And one of the arguments that the football ops people have to shrink the ratio is all the NFL opportunities Canadians are now getting, right? So all of a sudden, if they go to these alternative leagues just so they can have 1-year freedom, I think that's going to, that's going to put some people in a bit of a panic, right? So look, do I think the USFL is going to get off the ground? I do. As long as they get this lawsuit resolved, I think they'll get off the ground, right? Will the XFL get off the ground? I think they will. And I don't think there's a lot of people up here that think these leagues will never survive. I don't believe that. I do think at some point, one league is going to find a niche and is going to be able to capitalize enough on betting and create something unique and consistent enough that people will want to bet on it and invest, that I think it will survive. I'm not going to say it's going to compete with the NFL or anything like that, but I do believe that it's out there. I don't think you can just say never happen, never will. I definitely don't think 2 leagues are going to be able to do that, though, right? So the fact that the USFL can have a 1-year head start, it's a good thing. But I think when you've got The Rock and and Danny Garcia and Redbird behind the other entity, I think that's a better thing. And then the interesting part is the NFL wants to help both, right? Like they're working with them on rules and other other partnerships to potentially grow the game, and that's a good thing. And I would love to see the CFL go back down that road because there used to be an arrangement between the 2 leagues. There isn't anymore. There's a respect there for contracts and what both leagues do, but I'd love to see more of a working relationship between the 2 because, just here's a small example, the Global Initiative, okay? The CFL tried it. Guess what? The NFL jumped right in, right? And so now the best global players are going to go play in the NFL. And you look at various pro days, University of Florida and a number of others, they bring in internationals, right? They've got the NFL Pathways program, so rugby players can transition. And all those players, if they've got the chance, will do the NFL thing because of the money and the fame that's associated with it, right? The same doesn't resonate up here. However, not all those guys are going to make it. So why can't the 2 leagues have some synergies? We both want globals. We both want the global market and make this an international game. Yeah, okay, well, rather than the CFL running a combine in Europe, why don't they work with the NFL on that? If they're going to have international people coming to their pro days, why don't they work with the CFL on that and find some ways to create some synergies to grow together, right?
I think I tell you, I don't know if you would want it, but commissioner of all this, I think you would be a good. That's not what you're
young for that. Hey, the worst job in professional sports is CFL commissioner. Okay, I love Randy Ambrosi. He's a good guy. He means well. He's making a good effort. He's trying to think outside the box. But working for that board of governors, I've always said 1 of 9 is a lot more powerful than 1 of 32. So, the Winnipeg governor or, pick your team's owner or governor has more sway than Jerry Jones. And they want to walk around like they run the league. And it is tough for any commissioner to try to really affect long-term change because everybody's behind you at the start, but they also think they can control you, and then they can't, and then a couple guys don't like you anymore, and now you're on borrowed time. Like, it is a tough job working for that board.
Well, it's fascinating. I certainly appreciate your time today, talking through all of this, making time. And I know you're a busy guy. Thank you so much for sharing. Both. I'm glad I get a little CFL and a little USFL in there, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it's always a lot of fun for me to come on your show. I like that you've got tons of enthusiasm for all games and all things football, and you don't create those stereotypes and prejudices that if you don't like this, you can't like this. You don't know that. If like there's so many people up here, NFL fans, who the fact that I respect and appreciate the CFL, they think I know nothing about the NFL, right? Like, I've been covering the NFL forever, right? I go to, I've covered multiple Super Bowls, drafts, pick it. But because I respect the CFL, I don't know anything about the NFL, right? It's a funny country that way because, I don't know why I can't just love football like you.
No, I got in hot water this week with some of my, the title this week is this is a Pro-USFL podcast. I got in some, because God forbid I said, why are they tweeting more photos? Because training camps and everything. And oh man, so what's my hot take? Like, you want them to not be posting more photos? Like, I don't understand. Like, we have players coming in from all over the country and it's like 1 20-second video at the end of the day. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I think we could do more with Fox. So anyway.
Hey, more football is a good thing.
Yes, I appreciate it again. Thank you so much.
All right, take care, my friend.
Well, I'm very thrilled today. We have off of his, I would say, stellar performance on the USFL, the supplemental draft live stream. We have Andrew Murray, and Mark's going to kill me because I've already pre-recorded everything else. XFL, CFL News Hub, and then USFL News Hub. I kept forgetting that one. Welcome, Andrew. How are you?
I'm great, Reed. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm excited. So we have a lot of action items today. I called Andrew. I said, I need someone knowledgeable. We're going to go through all the USFL stuff. And I'm going to preface this, Andrew. This is a Pro-USFL podcast today. That is the name of the episode. We are a Pro-USFL. It's been a little tenuous on social media this week. Negativity involving your boy Reed with the USFL. So we're going to try to, how are you feeling first and foremost about the USFL before we get into all of this here now that we have, training camps opening up and all that?
I think gradually I'm becoming more positive towards the experience overall. I, at first, was very unsure about it, as most of us were last, I think, summer when it was announced that it was coming back. Having no previous experience with it, I was not alive last time the USFL was around. And so for me, I was a bit apprehensive. As time has gone on and more things have been released, I've become more into the idea of it and more invested in it, especially this week with the rules being released. That's a huge one for me. So I'm gradually being more invested. They've had to kind of slowly pull the rope on me a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, that's where I'm at. I do feel good as well. I feel good about the rules. I always say, like, critiquing with like actionable stuff. Like this week, it was training camps. I had a lot of like, I wish we were seeing more, right? I wish we were seeing more. Like, that's tangible things we can act on. Saying like, well, this sucks, or I'm not going to watch. That's hating. That's criticizing for the sake of criticizing. Saying like, I think Fox Sports could do more at showing, and we've seen some photos. We've seen a little bit of like the classroom stuff. I saw some players stretching on the field. Like, that's good, but I mean, you're owned by Fox. Like, I would expect a bare minimum that, it's always what is the bare minimum that they can do to get by. And I just think people want more than that. And, I guess we shouldn't say that sometimes. I guess that's where I'm at. I got a lot of heat this week for saying like, I think we should see more.
Well, I'll try to be a saint on today's show, but no promises.
So we have a lot of actionable stuff, a lot of USFL news. I hope you have your work pants on today. So we have the update for the real USFL versus USFL lawsuit. I have these kind of in order here. We have the new Carolina Panthers trademark opposition coming in. We have this bet responsibly. We'll touch on the sports betting. We'll kind of update that. Obviously, the rule book's being released. The players coming into training camp. And then we have a little bit of MLFB I want to talk about with Terry Shea, and then the FCF stuff at the end. So that's kind of where we're going to go with this, and we'll just kind of go through it in chronological order. I think is probably the easiest way to kind of break all this down. So I had Tim Billick on the show last week. We broke down a lot more of the USFL, real USFL versus USFL LLC, Fox Sports. Thoughts on the lawsuit, and then we have a new update with court filings and dates and things like that to update the listeners on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, actually, phenomenal job with Mr. Billick, and also Michael Cohen, the other IP lawyer that I brought on. It really gave me a lot of background knowledge. And in fact, my father's actually also worked as an IP lawyer as well. So he's very versed in that. I haven't brought this specific case to him yet. I would love to see what his takes on it are, as you've done with these other copyright lawyers. But yeah, it seems to be such a muddy picture. It seems to be so gray area where you have one camp saying basically that this is the USFL property that we previously owned, Steve Earhart and company, basically saying this is what we had, this is what we've always had. You have absolutely no right to come in, swoop in, take in all of the glory, all of the hard work, and all of the effort that we put into this league, and just start repurposing it, putting over another coat of paint, and redistributing it without paying any homage to the previous league whatsoever. And then you've got the other side in Fox and the National Spring League and Brian Woods or whatever entity it keeps changing its name to be, saying, well, actually, matter of fact, you have no dog in this fight in terms of the actual copyright usage because you have been not using it for an extended period of time or sparingly using it to the point where it doesn't actually seem to factor in terms of actual usage rate. I think the way that Tim Billick and Michael Cohen broke that down for the last month has been really interesting to just see how those fine lines are. And honestly, I mean, I hate to just sound like everyone else, but it sounds like it could break either way. And I'm not exactly sure which one. I'm going to lean towards Fox getting this done somehow, like somehow finding a way to settle. But it really depends on the judge and the time of day, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's questionable. What's interesting too, and it goes along in this same idea, because there's this, Fox is reaping the benefits, you could argue, off of past work, right? And then we'll get into the rule book here as well. But similar sentiment I've seen this week with XFL fans saying like, well, those were XFL rules, the USFL is using them. I've seen a lot of debate about that, right, on Twitter and on Facebook and things like, well, they're good rules. Why should we let them go? And, obviously we want to have the right. So it's interesting. You're coming into this a lot where it's like Fox is benefiting from the time they're hitting right now, being a year out, XFL not being here. They're profiting off of, the USFL trademarks being abandoned. They're profiting off of the XFL rules being abandoned. I mean, it's a lot of opportunistic, right? And you can say that's smart or that's shady, however you want to come down on it. But I mean, that is the facts. I mean, you can either agree with it or disagree with it. But the fact is that Fox is being very advantageous with the environment that they're in right now.
100%, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, it seems to be a lot of, again, repurposing. And that's kind of what's going on, especially even with, like you said, the rules. There's a ton of XFL rules that have been incorporated into this rule book. You can see it clear as day. Even some AAF rules, like, for example, the 4th and 12 conversion as opposed to the onside kick. That was a rule that was in the AAF. And then the XFL, obviously, the 3-point conversion, some of the other mechanics, such as, sorry for one moment, I just want to double check my notes here. I don't want to step on any toes here as far as this. Yeah, just basically in terms of like how it's structured, I wonder, like, obviously they're paying respect to Sam Schwartzstein and his incredible work in putting together the XFL rulebook, but is there really acknowledgement of it? Doesn't seem to be the case. And I've seen that from USFL fans or people who seem to be more attached to the USFL that basically said, well, look at how it compares to the NFL. Look at this rule book versus the NFL rule book. And I personally would like to see a little more acknowledgement of what was in there before the USFL came around in terms of some of these innovations and some of these changes that were being done in other leagues, and not just, especially considering the XFL is still around and is planning to be back at some point. I think just acknowledging that would be something I would like to see more of. But as I'm sure you have seen, Reed, obviously all of these camps and the Spring League circles seem to become divided and sort of huddled in their own areas. There's not always a lot of crossover as far as people who are interested in these leagues or want to support these leagues all the time. And it seems like people kind of huddle into their own little corner and kind of proclaim why they're the best.
It's weird. I mean, and when we started this podcast, I just, it was the XFL Markcast. We figured we talk about anything. Obviously got a lot of feedback from the CFL fans about that. I really honestly never once in a million years ever thought there would be a USFL v XFL, whatever. I never did. I always thought, oh, it's a Canadian thing. And I respect that and their game. But like the American, like they're not going to care. And it is. It's very divisive. I'll, continue covering all of this stuff equally as we can. But it's this, with the Sam of it all, and I'm hoping I got some sparks from the fire on that one. I'm just a big fan of like acknowledging where things came from. It's the same story with these trademarks. Bring in Steve Earhart. Bring in those guys if you're going to use it, whatever that costs. Same thing with these rules. Bring in Sam or acknowledge that or pay whatever that is. I mean, you're not like, it doesn't like he owns the rules, right? I mean, Sam didn't like patent the whatever, but like, it's profiting off these things. So we'll get into the rules, but the update, so the court case, so Tim Billa came on last week. We were trying to figure out the timeline. Tim said they're going to refile on the 17th, and they lo and behold, they did after we got off. So Real USFL refiled their complaint. They updated a lot of things. There was a lot of typo errors in the original complaint. They had sued the wrong Fox Sports. We don't need to talk about that. A lot of errors. They added in a bunch of other information. It was really handy. The judge actually made them resubmit like a redlined complaint so you could actually see everything that had been updated in the original complaint, which was incredibly helpful for me, right? Because it's like a 46-page thing to go through. So the hearing now is scheduled for April 18th at 1:30. That is the Monday following the USFL kickoff. So, again, like no one ever thought like, okay, this is going to like halt the league, right? At minimum, they thought, okay, we might have the Jousters against the Aviators or whatever, but USFL, unless they settle or anything moves forward earlier, it is scheduled for April 18th in courtroom 7A in Los Angeles, California. Buy your plane tickets if you want to go check that out. But that is the update with that. We're still kind of in a holding pattern. I've been waiting to hear back from the Real USFL side about those things. I think that we could get some traction on that here in the next couple of weeks. So I guess to put a pin in that specific action item, anything else on that lawsuit, April 18th?
Yeah, and I wonder, like you said, in terms of like all the redlining, in terms of putting all the things after the fact, I think it didn't help the Earhart camp that seemed to be a little bit discombobulated at the beginning and sort of, as you said, like going after the wrong entity in the lawsuit, which is a bit of a red flag. I also wonder, I mean, in terms of also having all this time leading up to this when they were well aware of what Fox's intentions were. But that being said, I mean, could you imagine if, say, the first weekend goes off without a hitch, they go through all these games, they have this big showcase on NBC and Fox simultaneously, and then suddenly an injunction comes in and they have to stop using the logos? Like, that would just be complete chaos. And I don't think that's going to happen for a variety of reasons. I don't think the judge is either A, going to rule that, and B, again, I'm not a legal expert, so I don't know, but what do I know? But I don't think A, the judge is going to do that, and B, I think Fox is going to find a way to sort of push it back and find a way to kind of get it at least until after the season. But that would be crazy if that actually was able to go through a day after the first weekend were to transpire. I mean, that would just be out of control. I've never heard of anything like that personally. I've heard of financial situations like the AAF shutting down in the middle of the week because of financial problems, but for a legal reason to come in to shut down a league, or to shut down the logo usage, that's a first for me.
Mark Perry always jokes in the XFL News Hub chat, like, aliens was always predicted to stop the next XFL, right? It wouldn't be a court filing, but they're looking in. I mean, it says on here, they're wanting final judgment. They're not able to register, own, sell, traffic, use the name. I mean, this would be a full shutdown of it. If real USFL, with Steve Earhart and them, if they got their way, it would be the death of using those marks moving forward. So the second item that came out, this earlier this week I think it was Monday. So the Carolina Panthers have filed a trademark opposition against the Spring League LLC, which is interesting because the USFL marks were kind of acquired by Brian through the Spring League, transferred to the National Spring Football League LLC, which then became the USFL LLC. Very confusing. If you're confused following that, you are not alone. But it came out that they filed an opposition not against USFL LLC, but against the Spring League for the Carolina Panthers because of the Michigan Panthers mark. Were you surprised when this came out? I was a little surprised.
Quite frankly, yes. As opposed to the filings that were made against the Roughnecks, for example, in the XFL, where there was like supposedly direct lineage to the Houston Oilers logo in the NFL, and also the New England Patriots logo as well. This one I was not expecting. I'm assuming it's just based on name and nothing else, as opposed to whatever else. But I've never specifically. I don't remember seeing that too often as far as just a name. If it's a logo, that's one thing. If it's a graphic design issue, I understand. But yeah, I was not really expecting that one. So it's just another thing, and including that and the hotel situation as well, for just another thing on the desk for Mr. Woods and others to figure out. So yeah, but I mean, what's another one at this point, I guess?
Well, that's what I said. You're kicking Fox and all that. You're kicking them while they're down. I mean, another legal opposition. But this is interesting. I was talking with listener Seth about a lot of this stuff. I think the idea is the Carolina Panthers actually have like Panthers trademarked. Like that is, and it's odd, right? You normally don't trademark something that generic, right? I have like Best Made Videos trademarked like for my company. And I think even when I was trying to trademark that, I think I ran into a little bit of issue because they're like, that's kind of like a soft, right? That doesn't like Apple used to describe technology. That's like a very specific case study, right? But like Best Made Videos is pretty generic. I think I have the one where if I just use it for long enough, like I get it. It's like grandfathered in or whatever. But I mean, there's other Panthers, like there's the Florida Panthers. I mean, I know that's hockey, but there's other football, there's college, right? I mean, there's plenty of Panther football teams. Weird that this came out. I mean, it's March 21st. It's like 3 weeks to kick off. I mean, this is when you're in the spotlight and when you're getting a lot of action,
Yeah, so like, what does that mean for the Florida Panthers in the NHL, right? Like, I'm like, okay, so are they not allowed to use that either? Again, I don't know what crossover there is there, and it's not exactly Taco Tuesday trying to be trademarked by LeBron James. If you remember that a couple of years ago, he tried to actually trademark the tag Taco Tuesday. Obviously, he was denied. But I mean, it is such a wide umbrella and such a wide net cast here. I'm not sure where it's going to go exactly, and with what sort of expediency it's going to be covered. Because as Tim mentioned last week, and when you were talking to him, there's always sort of a timeline with how these lawsuits are processed and where it's going along in terms of where the priority is and also how many there are in front of them. So who knows when the dates are going to be set for this one. If it's going to be after I would think, again, maybe at this point, maybe it'll be near the end or at the end of the season. But yeah, I mean, that's just another strike to deal with here for Fox.
Yeah, so the complaint as of us recording this Thursday yet to be responded to, right? They have window, right, to respond and all that. I'll keep an eye on this one. I'm trying to just monitor that way. But this was Mandor and Associates out of LA. I think they kind of like scour a lot of trademark, when certain things pop up in the court system and it's like, ooh, okay, there's opposition here. So they credit to them for that. So we'll see. I would keep an eye on it. It's just interesting, the NFL and they've said they were going to work with the USFL, right? They said they weren't going to not work with, but certainly not like get in the way of it. And this is something where that's this is not following that same kind of logic here. So, any other thoughts on that? We'll put a pin in the trademark and legal stuff and talk about the USFL training camps and rules.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that last point. Again, as you mentioned, there is a relationship previously with Fox and the NFL, again, with how much in terms of their relationship, their broadcast relationship. And I wonder maybe that was more with the league office than it was actually the individual teams and the owners who obviously there's two different sides of the NFL. There's the supposedly governing body in the commissioner's office, and then the owners who are the ones that typically seem to have more of the power. So I guess it's a matter, maybe if they thought that they had a relationship with the league office, but not so much the individual owners, maybe that's where some of this misunderstanding is, or not previously thought to be cordial relationship.
Absolutely, yeah. Because this is, from my understanding, this is a Panthers. You're absolutely right in pointing that out. Just because the NFL might have a working relationship with, Eric Shanks and Goodell or whatever, not necessarily the 32 team owners are going to feel. That's an excellent point. So this came out early this week. We know the USFL is big on the sports betting, all that stuff. Fox is big on the Fox bets. They're working with the American Gaming Association, right? Bet responsibly and all that. Obviously, that's good. In keeping in our Pro-USFL podcast theme today, do you think people are actually going to bet on USFL games?
Look, it is one of the most sought after sports as far as betting every single year. I have so many people in my life who are so ravenously engaged with sports betting, specifically in football. And I think, and that goes for NCAA, that goes for the NFL. And I think with the Spring League and just how more ubiquitous it's become and how many more partnerships have been formed, Caesars Sportsbook obviously starting to work with the NFL this past year after years of them kind of pretending to want to get involved. And they finally just pulled the trigger. I think it's going to be more like people like us or people who actually are religiously involved with the league. I don't know about casual people. That's the only thing I'm not sure about. I don't know if there's going to be like a widespread like casual viewership of this league or interest in this league just based on the sports betting alone. I'm sure that's part of the reason of why they started it. Of course, I'm sure that's part of bringing in that demographic. I just don't know how well it's known or how effective it might be in year one, maybe year two, maybe with more marketing strategy and more investment and more, trying to get the word out there. Because we've all talked about how, again, at the top about, well, why haven't they done this, or where's been the viewership? Why hasn't NBC promoted it during Super Bowl week or during the Super Bowl itself, for example? So I don't know if it's really going to be as involved this year. I would wager if they get through year one, they probably have more success in year two with more of a build up towards it. And because, and I think about it, Reed, as well, it's new league, it's new players, it's new rules. There's no predictability on here. Like, people want to at least feel like they know enough about a sport or a team or a player or have an inkling of something that they can guess what's going to happen. And even with the XFL, as involved in as much as it pushed for the betting aspect so much, I'm sure there was still hesitancy from people of thinking, well, I don't know this team. And what do you mean you can do a 3-point conversion and tie a game when you're down 9? I talked to someone who said that. They're like, that's crazy. I can't bet on point spreads knowing that's part of the factor. It's changing football, of course, which is great. It's innovating, but it's also changing the mindset of the bettors too. So I don't know if that necessarily is a factor, but it could be just based on the level of unknownness in this case.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, we did the supplemental draft, you and me and Evan and Vince, like Vince literally watches European football, VOD, offshoot, we all, you guys write for the News Hub and you're like, well, I kind of know that guy. I don't know that guy. Okay, I think I might know that. We're going through the list as they're being drafted. I'm like, if I'm Joe Schmo, I don't know if I'm betting on that. I mean, I in theory, and I think that's a great point that you brought up. I honestly didn't even think about yet. Having these different rules and the point swings and the onside kick thing, and you be able to go 9 points as a 1-score game. It changes those spreads a lot, and I think that Vegas and them. It's even with the CFL, it doesn't get as much traction because it's not that exact specific game that they know that they can bet on. There's a lot of nuances in that you really have to be dedicated to be able to take advantage of.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think, again, look, there's, like I said, there will be people, there will be, quote, junkies who are going to be involved with this no matter what. But just from the standpoint of, a point being made of, I think in the video about the extra points, they mentioned on the USFL's Twitter page, I think they mentioned about if you're down 18, it's only 2 scores. I mean, in regular football, that's a 3-score lead. You think, we're safe. No worry. Whatever money line I put down, I am totally fine. Now you really have to start thinking about that. And so now maybe, again, if people get used to the rules, then they can start thinking about that. But upon first launch, it might deter some people.
Totally agree. I totally agree. So speaking of the rulebook, so they released this alongside all the USFL players, everyone's showing up in Birmingham. Any general thoughts, any of that coverage before because I do want to spend, we've been on this so long already, I appreciate it, but I do want to spend the bulk of time actually talking about these rules. Any general thoughts of the players arriving, how that was handled, any excitement you saw or didn't see online?
I just think I think we had a really good back and forth I think it was on your Twitter about the Hard Knocks Light. Some really good quips made on there by some of your users. But I'm not really sure what their aim is there. I mean, like I said, it looked like a normal, regular, it looked like a university promo. It looked like something you would film for your university, look, come tour our campus. It looks really nice, but it doesn't seem like there's really gritty, hard quality or something there that's going to entice me as a viewer to necessarily engage with it. I'm not quite sure. I think one of your panelists last week talked about F1 and how much more visible and much more accessible it's become for people, just based on the way that it's been portrayed and marketed, and also with the filming that's gone into it as of late. And I can't say I'm really impressed by what has been put out there. Now, maybe there's more footage to come down the pipeline, and that's great. If it's coming, after week 1 or training camp or whatever, great. But based on the initial promo, can't say it's really anything remarkable.
Yeah. So to catch, if you don't, and a lot of our viewers, right, don't, all the different social media stuff. So a lot of chatter had came out Monday night. One of the players was on another, I think it was a USFL network. They do live stream player interviews. And there was an Instagram post, and it had come out and they had said, there's going to be cameras filming a Hard Knock style, a documentary TV show during the USFL. And the problem when you say that is people look at Hard Knocks and that has a certain level of threshold, right, that they are expecting. Where if I just say I'm shooting behind the scenes stuff, or we're going to be shooting some photos, but for whatever reason, when you say we have a Hard Knocks or a Drive to Survive F1 that we were talking about, like you said last week with Jason Greger, there's a certain level of expectation. So that had all come out Tuesday. All the players were coming in, and it was I had went and got my gums looked at for my dumb teeth thing. And it was 3 in the afternoon. So it was 5. It was 5 Birmingham time because they had been there all day. And I'm the league, they hadn't posted anything. They had posted one meme early in the morning, training camp is starting. And I tweeted, I said, I have a hard time believing that a league that has not posted a single photo or video of anybody arriving today is somehow going to whip up a Hard Knocks thing. I want to see that. I want to be proven wrong. I don't not want anything to come, but I just don't see the same league that didn't stream their draft, right? They had us and others doing, draft coverage and and it was all on Twitter and everything. Like, you're going to get a lot of that. I just don't like, I saw people like, oh, it's going to be on Peacock. It's going to be on FS1. I'm like, the draft wasn't on anything. Why are they going to put this on anything? Like, it's fine that it's not, but like, but that was what caused a lot of the drama.
Well, like, why go through the effort of, for instance, putting the draft lottery on Speak for Yourself, midday FS1? You went through all that effort. Okay, fine. You put it on not Colin Cowherd, and you decided to put it on Speak for Yourself and have the lottery, and then not show the draft. Like, imagine if the NBA did that. We're like, well, we're going to show you the lottery. We'll not show you the actual draft coverage. You guys will read about that later on. I mean, it kind of like almost takes out the actual purpose and drama of the whole situation. And again, these are brand new teams we're talking about. There's no lineage beyond, the old USFL, which again, it seems disassociated. And you don't have any history building up to it anyway. So I don't get that strategy. That is very bizarre. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up about, the level of quality that we expect in a Hard Knocks thing. It's also a matter of like, what do we expect out of Hard Knocks? We expect, first of all, good quality footage. We expect storylines. We expect showcasing of what could be featured from the team that's being featured in the documentary itself, because this might be all 8 teams as opposed to just one team. And really the biggest thing for me, and I really hope that Fox gets this, is profiles, player profiles. Why are they there? What are they doing? Where have they been? Where are they trying to go to? Like, the reason that things like, for example, Last Chance U on Netflix is so compelling is because it's following these guys who have these really interesting backstories and someone that you really are convinced to root for, and so that they get another chance to be able to succeed. I think for me, that's one of the biggest things that anyone watches spring football. A lot of people like us are really invested in these people's stories. And I really hope that they get that, as opposed to it just being, well, here's how the football team works and here's their operation and this is what they're doing. Cool. That's great. I also want to know, who are these people? Like, that's really what I want to know.
Yeah, it's a tough. So no, I mean, and do I not think, like, I absolutely believe that they're filming behind the scene. Like, I absolutely, yes, like, of course. And it's Fox, like, they have LA crews that are there. Like, Fox has crews that are doing that. Like, I just like to set expectations, because they went crazy with that. Like I said, so at the end of the day, they did post like a 20-second promo video, and it was fine. I mean, I film every quarter. I go film these Wedding Network events. I do a 60-second Instagram reel every time. That's part of what I'm hired to do. I mean, that's what it is. Like, that's 20 minutes to edit that, to do it, a couple time lapses. So I just want to set expectations. I just thought that was interesting. I got a lot of flack for that. So players are in. We have the rule book. I guess they released a couple of very XFL inspired social media videos. Did you notice that the videos that they used to like kind of show some of the things, very reminiscent? If you look at the Markcast, if you look at our podcast logo, that is from the XFL. Like, that's showing the double forward. I don't know if anyone ever knows that. That's showing the double forward pass. If you look at our podcast logo, as double forward pass, as animated in the XFL, whatever. So they came out with all this stuff. So we have the extra points, we have the instant replay, we have kickoffs, we have the onside kick, overtime, and then penalties. So, and we could spend an hour on this, but we're going to go. So I'll read this and then we'll get your thoughts on this. So for the extra points, they're going to have 3 different options. So if you remember, the XFL had no kicking for extra points. It was like you could go for 1 from the 1, right? 2 from the 2, and then 3 from the 10, right? Is that? So now you can still kick for the 1 point from the 15-yard line, like, standard kind of whatever. If you do a 2-point conversion from the 2-yard line, you get that, and then the 3 points from the 3. What do you think of them having the 3-point conversion, but then also keeping the option to do an extra point kick from 1?
So actually, I really like this, because for this reason, I think the XFL's emphasis on almost trying to eliminate the kicker as a position in multiple ways was maybe, in my opinion, just a little bit of overkill. I think kickers still have a purpose. I know I'm not flying a banner in the back of my house saying kickers are people too or anything like that. I'm not, I'm not like so ardently like running around proclaiming my affinity for special teams players. But I think there's a place for them, and I think they're still important factors, and they're part of the strategy. They're part of the strategy of the game. I think the reason that you see, like in the NFL, for example, why teams are starting to go for 2 more often, or why they're going for 4th down instead of on field goal range, is because either A, their kicker's not quite up to stuff, or they think they have personnel that's good enough to get more points out of just kicking an extra point. Look, take the Houston Roughnecks, for example. Their game, I remember, against the Tampa Bay Vipers, they were down 3-0. They score a long touchdown pass to Cam Phillips, and then they go for 3. This is the first touchdown in the game. You don't need to go for 3. You can score points, like no problem. But they are so confident in going for 3 from the 10 that they said, we have PJ Walker, who's on fire right now, and we dare you to stop us. And they didn't. They got a 3-point conversion. So it's also about personnel. So I like that they have this mix of, okay, I trust my kicker. I have no problem with this. Let's go for an extra point. Or they'd be like, hey, I really believe in my offensive skill positions, and I think we can go for more points right now. I like that you can experiment, because in the XFL, the problem was too, I don't think they were ready. Not every team had the right skill position players or the right sets to deal with it. Like the 1, 2, and the 3. AAF too, like every time you had to go for 2. And I'm like, a lot of these teams are not ready for this. It's something that has to be ironed out.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to, like, the 1 yard line play is very difficult. It becomes very compressed right at the end of the like. That's why the CFL has that wider open end zone. It just allows for a lot more, because if you're at the 5, it's really like you're at the 25 or whatever. You just have a lot more like area to mess with. And so, yeah, I mean, it's honestly probably easier to go for 3 from 10 than it is 2 from 2, just because of like the distance you're able to cover. I like this. I think it's good. I think you have to, when they came out and they said, like, Brian Woods with the Roy S. Johnson interview, I guess it was in February, it said 98% of our rules are going to come from the NFL. I hope there was enough differentiation. There is here. I'm very glad about that. So there you go. 1 point, 2 point, 3 points. We have all that. Instant replay, we had talked about this because Mike Pereira had done an interview earlier on talking about, Mike Pereira is kind of the head of officiating. It's the one man is overseeing. There's no like council of anybody. The USFL Replay Command Center at Fox Sports will make all of the replay decisions. So the effect is one replay crew, because for all of these, they gave it like a pro and a con, like why we did this. So I guess for the extra points, it was effect. Teams trailing by 9 points or less have an opportunity to close the gap. There you go. Reason, add late game excitement by improving chances to come back. Okay, I'll get used to this. For only episode 85. So then the effect for the instant replay. One replay crew will make all the decisions. Reason, achieve accuracy, consistent, faster ruins. And there's only one replay allowed per coach. With typically in an NFL game, you would have 2 replays or 2 challenge flags per game. Thoughts on the instant replay?
I'm curious. I don't think it mentioned anything about if they win the challenge, did they get another one? Because in the NFL, if you win 2, you get another one. I don't know if it mentioned that at all.
It doesn't say on here. It says they replay has the authority to overrule incorrect personal fouls. I would imagine you do if you use it and get it, because they basically, the press release that they sent out was basically highlighting all the differences. So if you didn't see nowhere in here did it talk about like feet in bounds equating to a catch. And so I think the thought is, if it's not mentioned, it's NFL rule. So I would imagine if you use the replay and you get it, you would also be able to get another one.
Yeah, as far as how the game is legislated, that's kind of more my question as far as like what that factors into the replay. And the other thing I'm wondering about is it doesn't seem like it's going to be as transparent as the XFL was in terms of like showing the guy with the controller and the video screen and going through on the live mic, on the hot mic, basically saying what he was seeing and what angles he was using and how that factored into the decision. Like that was a really big aspect of that league. And I think that doesn't seem to be the case here. I think it's more just, we have this replay center and they can do all these things, but you can't see it. Like it's going to be kind of behind the curtain still as it is in New York with the NFL. So that's my thing. Is it like this is basically what the NFL, right? I mean, they, they always say like, let's go to New York and say that. I mean, it does the one challenge. I like challenges. I like that. Yeah. But cutting down on that's fine. But it's like, so you're putting up the Wizard of Oz curtain for the replay, but then you're also limiting the number of challenges you have to one. So it does seem like
it's disadvantaging on both sides, where I have less challenges and also less transparency of what I'm seeing. I get they're trying to speed up the game. I don't know. It's weird to highlight this in their rules, but it feels eerily similar to the NFL stands the replay or the challenge flags.
Yeah, and I think with Mike Pereira being involved, I think that's to be expected, seeing as that he obviously has been ahead of officiating there, and he's been very involved in the NFL rulebook and stylings for a long time. So I'm not surprised that there's not really any transparency or any revolutions made here. Like there's no, it's not like the Sky Judge or anything of that nature that's being involved here. But, as long as they make accurate, articulate calls and they're able to judge properly, that's fine. You just don't want that. Again, that's a factor that you don't want to get involved, especially with betting. If you want to get more bettors, you need to make sure that your game is also fair and equal.
100%. Okay, so that's for that. So the kickoffs, I saw a lot of it's the XFL kickoff. It is not the XFL kickoff. I can say that assuredly from talking to someone very close to the XFL rulebook this week, that it is not the XFL kickoff. All kickoffs will be from the 25-yard line. No kicking team may line up any further back than the one. That's fine. Receiving team must have. Basically, they're just moving the kicker back, right? They're moving the kicker. They're trying to prevent touchbacks. The effect is create more yet safer kickoff returns, increase big play potential with more return kickoffs rather than touchbacks. My question though is, if we're lining further back, are we increasing the distance that we're then traversing to recover the kick, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, Reed. Yes, exactly. See, it didn't mention anything as far as it said that they would be able to start after it's kicked after a certain distance, but unlike the XFL, which had the players lined up 5 yards from each other on, I want to say, the 30 or the 35-yard line, and then would initiate contact once the ball was touched, which the statistics showed that it was very safe. Sam Schwartzing, again, has gone over this extensively about how much it cut down on all of the injury possibilities. This does not seem to be the case in this league, and that is why I kind of raised an eyebrow at the safety angle, because it sounds to me, like you said, not only are they still running full speed, they have more of a head start to run at a full speed. So I'm not quite sure where that thought comes in here. So I understand getting rid of the touchbacks. I totally get it. You just want to see kickoff returns, because it's become an obsolete art in NFL. We don't have Devin Hester's anymore, because teams have just said, well, I don't have to do that anymore. So I do like the CFL game for the kickoff returns a lot more. I mean, if you are someone that likes special teams, I mean, the CFL is obviously the league for you in that way. Yeah, it's weird. The punts, some of this stuff is lost on me when I'm trying to read this stuff. Punts, gunners may not line up outside the numbers, and they cannot be double team blocked until the ball is kicked. Yeah, that part, the timing on that is really strange. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to play out, because obviously I think you're allowed to do so regardless of whether the ball has been punted or not in the NFL. But in this case, I think peripherally, I'm just trying to think how players are going to be able to sort of engage that while they're looking at the ball being kicked and also being engaged with the person that's in front of them. That part I'm not really quite sure. I mean, I'm sure they'll go over this in training camp, but that to me is a little odd too. That part I really don't know how that's going to play out. I feel like it's going to be a little confusing. I feel like we're going to see some special team coverage errors first couple weeks at least. Yeah, it feels like, and I was kind of talking to Dorothy about this last night, my wife. It feels like, we saw we're picking and choosing, we're taking some AAF, we're taking some XFL, we're taking some Spring League whatever stuff with the clock or whatever else, but when Sam did all this for the XFL, it was a lot of testing. They used the Spring League for testing. They had the training camps for testing. I mean, here we are. It's March 24th. Players are hitting the field, tomorrow, really. I mean, they're meeting and stretching and doing things, whatever. We have 2.5, 3 weeks here to kind of get ready. I don't know. I think you're right. I think we're going to see some special teams errors here coming up. The onside kick versus scrimmage play. So they're able to obviously do an onside kick. I think we've murdered the
kick and onside kick in the NFL. I mean, it's not exciting at all anymore.
Yeah.
But you're able to do, and this is funny because the AAF did this. But then never forget, this is fan control football. This is the flip the field play or whatever the hell that was that they met the one team did like every time, and then they had to like stop the game and be like, no, you guys can't do this anymore. Because the team was just like, we're gonna flip the field, we're gonna flip the field, we're gonna flip the field. So you're able to, as opposed to doing an onside kick, you can do a 4th and 12 from the 33-yard line. And if you get a first down, you get possession, and if you fail, the defense gets the ball.
Yeah. Okay. So again, this is the good part of the rule book when you have options. When you have options between what do I want to do based on the analytics, the statistics, do I think I have a good enough special teams unit? Do I think I have a good shot at recovering this ball? Is my kicker able to spin that thing and be able to have it ricochet off somebody's foot or arm or something and be able to recover it? Or do I trust my offense enough to be able to convert a 4th and 12 from the 25-yard line? Again, that's strategy. And I like that part of it. If you're able to give options, that's great. And some teams will be more equipped for other things than other points. You know, some special team units will be great. Other people will say, hey, my offense is on fire right now. We just scored a touchdown. I want to get right back on the field. I
think also it helps having actual coaches and coordinators and things like working through this. I think that was the problem in fan control football. It was just like, well, let's just go for it again. Let's just go for it, because you have this like mob mentality. Because I watched that game and I was like, this is wild. Like, they're never going to get the ball back. Like, they're never going to score. And, you know, so I don't think you're going to run into that problem. I agree with you. Having options, it's like you just need a couple different, like, what's different? You're talking to your buddy. What's different about the USFL? Like, well, you can go for 3, and they kind of got this interesting, like, not, what the hell is it? Not onside kick, different. Oh, okay. Like, that's cool. Yeah. We just need a couple of things to like, what is different about that? So they have the punts here. Anything else on that? I want to get to the overtime.
No, again, it's nice to see them give a nod to the AF, because that's actually a rule change that I really liked and appreciated. I saw a couple teams try it near the end of games. One, I think, actually converted it, and it was like, oh my gosh, they're going to start going down the field. And then I think the drive stalled, but it was cool. But it was cool though. It was kind of like, oh wow, what if you actually let somebody do this? So again, I hope that we're able to get a full sample size this time and be able to see this over the course of the season, see how it goes.
Yeah, this is so I'm reading the overtime one. I'm smiling at this. So the effect of why they are doing this unique overtime is, in fact, both teams have an equal chance of winning. Oh, good. I would hope that at a minimum, that is the effect that we have with this overtime. So this is the like XFL meets CFL, like we're mini gaming, because the CFL, they do the mini games. XFL had the shootout. It is a best of three play shootout. Each team's offense will alternate plays between the opposing team's defense from the 2-yard line. So it's going to be like a 2-point conversion. Each successful scoring will receive 2 points. Why does it need to be 2 points? Why would it just be 1 point? But you get 2 points per successful. The team with the most points after 3 plays wins. If you tie, then you become sudden death. The overtime period will extend until a winner is declared.
Well, I get the penalty shootout aspect of it in terms of like being able to let other teams have a fair amount of chances. But again, what my point earlier, as I was saying, not all teams are equipped to be able to run those kinds of plays from short yardage situations. That's going to clearly disadvantage some teams more than others. And look, maybe you need to practice that. I understand that, but it's going to clearly like disadvantage certain teams over the others. And I will say, at least it's not the college system, which I'm not sure. I know you're not a huge college football fan, but have you seen the recent overtime system for college football?
I've heard it just goes forever, that it's like 60 to 65 or whatever. It just never ends.
Well, it used to, but the thing is now, like, there was a game last October, I think it was Illinois and Penn State. And I believe, I have to double check this, but I believe it was 9 overtimes. Could you guess what the final score was?
Really high.
It was like 18 to 16. It was nothing because they kept going for 2 and they kept missing. So like either they're missing or sometimes they were responding. It went on forever. It was crazy. I don't know if I ever want to see something like that again. Personally, it was kind of a hard watch. So at least this kind of takes that out of it. But again, it's interesting because we never saw this in XFL. No one played in overtime. The Vipers were so close to doing it against the Wildcats that last game, and they couldn't convert the last drive. So, I mean, again, where are the bouquets showing up on Sam Schwartzstein's front door for this? Because, again, this is another innovation. Now, we're going to see it actually played out, but I would like to see some sort of acknowledgement again of that rule being proposed before.
So the answer could very well be yes. Am I dense here? It says overtime will be a best of a 3-play shootout. So each team gets 3 plays, so it's a best of 6.
Well, no, it's a best of, what do you mean, like 6?
Well,
you mean 6 total.
Right, we each get 3.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So it's not a best of 3-play shootout, it's a best of 6-play shootout.
I mean, it's basically whoever has the most in the end. So because originally I'm like, they're going to go 3 times, but they're not. Cause like, I'm going to go, you're going to go, I'm going to go, you're going to go, I'm going to go, you're going to go, right? Best of 3, we each get 3. I believe so. I'm pretty sure. Like, it's like penalty kick outs. It's like penalty kicks in soccer. Like you can go until 5, or just whenever there's a point where the other team can't respond, and so he can't match you point for point at the end.
Okay, so best of. I'm just used to like best of 7 in the NBA. It's like 7 games. Best of 3 to me is like it's 3, but you would need 6 to have. I mean, that's fine. Reed could just be dense. I'm just reading.
Well, we'll see how much math is done on the field too.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that math was involved in this. A couple last things on here. Timing: the clock will stop for first downs inside 2 minutes of the second and fourth quarter. Sounds very much like the comeback period in the XFL. I did not cover the XFL right like I am now. Is that how the XFL's timing was?
Yeah, essentially. I think it was within 3 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been. I have to double check that, but it was a similar fashion of like how shortened the play clock was and how much and first downs stopping each way. That's the other thing. Haven't seen anything confirmed about the play clock situation as far as how much time is left for. If it's going to be NFL rules, then it's going to be closer to that. Whereas the XFL was like 25 seconds, or it was really quick. So yeah, I actually like this. It's kind of. The NCAA, obviously, it's every first down is clock stoppage, and then the ball is spotted. So to have it within the last 2 minutes, I think makes a lot of sense. You know, the game will go quick enough, but then it gives an opportunity for the offense to respond and be able to do something at the end of the game. I pulled up the official XFL rulebook. So the comeback period occurs at after the 2 minute warning in each half. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I thought like Fan Control Football, or one of them does, because the CFL does a 3 minute warning, which
right. CFL does 3. That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
but like that to me, I've never. But yeah, it occurs 2 minutes. And so on the plays that end in the field of play, game clock will be stopped until the ball has been spotted, and then 5-second runoff. So then if it's out of bounds, play clock stopped. So the XFL one is actually more advantageous because the USFL is only stopping it for first downs, where the XFL stopped it after every play and then did the runoff. So it is actually, I preferred the XFL one because it really did feel like that last 2 minutes lasted a lot longer. Like when the Dragons were trying to come back, or maybe it was when we won the first one, we were stopping the Roughnecks, but they were trying to come back. And I'm like, isn't this game ending yet? Like, isn't this like, what is going on with that? So, but it's good. If you're behind, this is good timing rules. I like this.
Yeah, no, I think I remember that. And also I think between the Renegades and the Roughnecks, same situation was kind of happening where they were trying to stop it every single time when Dallas was trying to come back. And then it's hard. It's also hard for you if you're trying to run the clock out. It's like very discouraging of that. It's saying, well, no, we don't want you doing that. You have to earn it. So, which I understand that, you know, it keeps everyone involved up until the very end.
Yeah. I'm going to jump to the 2 forward passes, and then we'll go back to the penalties because it seems to me this makes more sense this way. They are bringing in the double forward pass that when they announced the rules, I tweeted the video of Landry Jones, and that got crazy. I was really surprised how much engagement that got on Twitter because everyone will remember Landry Jones threw the ball, got batted back to him, he caught the ball, and he threw it again because it was, I don't think there was an actual true double forward pass in the XFL. I think this was as close as we got to it.
No, there was a double forward pass as well. That was so I think I want to say the the Defenders ran one. I think they ran one with Tyler Palka. I have to double check that, but I seem to recall there being one that was executed. Not a lot of teams had strategized for it yet. I think just trying to figure out kind of what skill positions were involved. Palka is a hybrid quarterback wide receiver. He played quarterback earlier in his career, so it made sense for him to be involved. But I don't know if you're going to have like a lot of Julian Edelmans running around in this league. So that's kind of where I'm curious as to how people are actually going to use it. I mean, there's plenty of people in the NFL who throw Jarvis Landry, for example, he throws a beautiful ball for a left-hander. And I think also some other players too are involved, or maybe I'm thinking of, Jarvis Landry, but but it's interesting. I don't know if teams are going to, what exactly the strategy behind that? Because people are so programmed to catch it behind the line of scrimmage on a lateral and then throw it forward. I think this new innovation is still something that offensive coordinators have to figure out what they're going to do with.
Yeah, I think it was. I do remember that. I remember Googling some of it because I was thinking of the Landry Jones. But yeah, I do think there was a Defenders one. The thing to me with this, it sounds gimmickier and fun, more fun. Dorothy's like, it's not more fun than it really is, because it's the difference of like, I'm going to lateral it back and then you're going to throw it versus like, I'm going to kind of pitch it forward. What like it like the actual like fundamentals of it doesn't change that much to be able to like I guess you're never going to be that deep in your right and like your line of scrimmage. Like you're never going to be 20 yards back and then like, well, I'm going to pass it. And then it's really cutting down. I don't know. I always thought it sounded cooler than it like actually turned out to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was just supposed to cut down on the illegal forward lateral penalty. I think it's really, maybe it's just trying to eliminate that and be like, oh, well, actually you were not able to do that. So I think it's just, maybe it's more eliminating that penalty more than anything else as opposed to like innovating the game. But with the Landry Jones thing, that was just funny because it was like, oh, look, he gets another chance. That's cool. Because otherwise, like, you see so many times like an offensive lineman or somebody getting the ball and then they're starting to rumble with it and you're like, oh, this is a broken play. But for him to get it back and throw it again was like cool. But how many times are you going to see that like in a game? Maybe once. And I saw that's just that one time the entire time in the XFL. So
last couple on here, defensive, they have the penalties, defensive pass and offensive pass interference. So for defensive pass interference, the penalty will mirror the NCAA rule with exceptions. Basically, where's from there? Because they have it and then they copy here. First, a defender intentionally tackling a receiver beyond 15 yards will become a spot foul. Also, the penalty will be a spot foul if it occurs 15 yards or less from the line of scrimmage, or a 15-yard penalty from the line of scrimmage if the spot of the foul is beyond the 15-yard line. Can you make sense of this?
Yeah, so essentially it's just trying to eliminate the idea of it being the spot of the foul. It's just trying to give you a 15-yard penalty if it's beyond 15 yards, and if it's before 15 yards, then it's the spot of the foul, as opposed to I'm just going to chuck the ball as far as I can, and I'm going to have my receiver come back to it. That's something that I kept calling it with my friends last year. I kept calling it the DPI offense. And it's something that someone like your boy Carson Wentz used a lot with the Colts. I saw him a number of times do that against players. It's funny, but until a certain point where I'm like, okay, this is just annoying. Like if this is how you're getting your yardage, like that's just alienating to everybody playing quarterback and to people watching the defense. So I think this is a good change, and I'm glad that I'd much rather have the college version of it where it's just 15 yards. It's like, well, 15 yards. Okay, you made a mistake, but it's not going to kill you. We're not going to have an egregious amount of yards given to the offense because some receiver decided to run back into the cornerback 50 yards down the field.
First off, watch your mouth with the Carson Wentz talk. No one's boy. I'm very terrified for that.
I'm just saying it's a strategy. It works. I'm just saying, but it's like it's not my favorite strategy, but it's a strategy. Because that's also the Derek Carr kind of game plan too. Derek Carr likes to huck it and like, let's see if we can get a little people get feel down there. The offensive pass interference, if a pass does not cross the line of scrimmage, there can be no pass interference or ineligible players downfield. I think that's just trying to we're cleaning up stuff, we're moving it quicker. Absolutely. Yeah. Just trying to legislate the game a little bit more efficiently.
Okay, so we talked Hard Knocks. Any other rule stuff? We'll get FCF out. You've been on here for so long. Thank you so much. We'll knock out FCF here. Any other thoughts on the rules before we go on that?
I just think it's really fascinating that it's such a hard combination of NFL, XFL, and a little bit of AAF rules. They're trying to incorporate the best of all worlds. My only question is, what does that mean for the identity of your league? Is that going to really give you a finite identity of what your league is about? Because we know how different the XFL was. We know in some ways how different the AAF was trying to be. We know how way different the CFL is, that FCF. They all have these very distinct characteristics to them based on the desire to make the game better and more efficient. And obviously the USFL is trying to do that. Fox is trying to do that in some way, but it just kind of feels like this more buffet option style of like, well, look at all these other things that we have that you seem to all like from these other leagues. We have this too. And it's like, okay, I want to see if it's actually going to push the envelope forward and actually create change. Maybe it will, and maybe the NFL will take more notice, and that's great. If they see some of these things, they want to change them. But I just wanted to see if it's like a born identity, if it's one that they really understand that they're forming and taking upon all these rule changes.
Yes, I agree. Like, well, you liked this, so we're going to do that. You like that, so we're going to do. I definitely agree with that. I don't think there's any like game breaking things where like if we don't have the ability to test too much of this, like I don't think they're going to kill anything game one, right? Like they're going to come out and be embarrassed with like, oh. Because I remember when Sam was on our show, he talked about, when they had the first XFL kickoff, it was like they were trying to coordinate it to like make sure, okay, it's going to go and it's going to like he's going to catch it, because the last thing you want is them to muck that first kickoff where it looks so different. And it was really close. Like the guy kicked it to the opposite side of the field or whatever, and the receiver wasn't necessarily the quickest individual to get over it. So there was worry. I think Sam's like heart skipped that first game because it's like, God, if this doesn't work, I mean, this is like, we're going down in flames, where nothing with this, I think, is going to feel like worst case, you have a bundled 2-point conversion that you're like, oh, darn. Okay. That didn't work out. They want you, cheerleaders, national anthem singers. I saw that came out. If you're interested in that, there's tryouts. Interesting that USFL is going down the cheerleader route, because that was something that, the XFL famously did not because of the first XFL and the cheerleaders.
Again, kind of late to the game again. Am I remiss here? Like, it seems a little odd that that's just kind of in the middle of the training camp announcement. I thought that would be something that would be announced or covered earlier. I mean, maybe it was, no one knew about it, but that just seems like an odd late announcement.
If you're listening to this today, you better get your ass to Birmingham tomorrow, because it's March 26th. So it is Saturday, 3 to 6, and March 26th, 3 to 6, and then April 2nd, 9 to 12. So you have a couple of chances, but you better get your butt to Birmingham if you want to do that. Real quick, Major League Football announced we had, what the hell was that?
Jerry Glanville.
Jerry Glanville. We had Jerry Glanville. My memory is slipping like Jerry's. We had Jerry Glanville, and now we have Terry Shea, also a Spring League. Feels like the MLFB is going down the Spring League route so far. We had the announcements, right? It was like Ohio, Arkansas, Texas, and then Virginia, I think, for the teams. That came out after I recorded last week. We had the rumored, right? They had the names. Thoughts on MLFB, and I'm going to pull up their website because I want to get the team names.
So, like, are they the new Spring League? Because it sure feels like it. Are they going to hire like Ted Cottrell and Hal Mummy and all those guys too? Do you think they were? I don't know. It almost feels like they were waiting for Brian Woods to kind of move on to another property and then go, now's our chance to be that league. I don't. I'll believe it when I see it, when they actually start to form a way to actually bring in all these teams, these players, the personnel, all the logistical factors, as opposed to just saying, hey, we have all the AAF equipment hanging out in a warehouse somewhere. Come play for us. Like, I mean, good for them for coming in and, I guess, believing that there's going to be football at some point. I mean, I wonder, I'm not sure exactly what sort of hope there is that this is going to take off in any way, shape, or form, but who knows? We've seen a lot of things in this scene.
Yeah, so we have the Attack, which I believe is the Arkansas Attack. They don't have we have the Attack, the Force, Independence, and then Armada, which is interesting because that was wasn't that the Armada, wasn't that? Or that was the Washington football team was going to be the Armada?
I think they had the Armada as part of one of their proposed ideas. Yes.
I would have liked Armada over Commanders. So we have, anyway, so those are the 4 teams. They're going to be playing out of the one hub, right? I think it's the plan. I believe it's the Arkansas Attack, and then we have the Forest, the Independence. I imagine that's Texas, right? It looks, and then the Armada. So pick and choose that way. I said last week on here when Jerry Glanville came out, I've just never gotten the fascination with this, where like every week, and we have like the Richard for reals of the world. I love you, Rich, but like, what's going on with MLFB? I'm like, I go watch CFL, man. Like they're kicking off again. I mean, training camps start in March or in May. Like I would get involved with that and get a team. Like, you're going to at least get a season to play out of it. Then, God, it's March 24th. We have 2 head coaches of 4 announced.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, we give so much grief in general, maybe sometimes to certain announcements not coming down the pipeline for certain leagues and certain ways of what's being done. Again, not to be like overly negative or anything, just, we want things to be better. We want things to be run in a way that will allow these leagues to stay around. And the MLFB, I mean, by comparison, just makes them all look like they've been a well-oiled machine for years on end, because I don't really know, like, it's such a basement operation. And I mean, some people said that about the Spring League with Brian Woods, but even then, like, he had a way of like securing leasing agreements and being able to get to stadiums and get people involved and contact agents, and you had it a lot more together in that respect. So for them to just kind of hire Spring League, I don't know, not retreads, but just people who've been involved in that league and maybe take over the identity of it in some way. I mean, have a date, something.
I think this is, like, if I'm Jerry Glanville, like, sure, like, call me when you're going, I mean, they can announce anything, right? And then you could say next week, like, well, this, so I mean, sure, like, I'm in this, like, announce me, that's fine. And then, announce Terry Shea, I keep wanting to say Terry Shea. He was with the Blues, right? I mean, these are fine. Like, it's good. It's serviceable. I just, you're looking at the talent drop off, right? Fan Control Football has their training camps going now. USFL has their training camps. So, like, there is a finite number of, like, actual people that are going to be able to play, like, in this league. So, but I mean, obviously there's a million, football players out there if you're looking for an opportunity. But if I was a fan, I would really, I would just get into the CFL. I really, like, I don't get this. Let's take a flyer on this league out of, I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. CFL, USFL, CF, there's so many more palatable options, really.
Yeah. So last thing here. Oh, my new camera was glitching there. This is insane. So we have the Fan Control Football. I want to say I'm going to try to give Fan Control Football a fair shake this season. I'm on the board. Apes Football Club. I have listener Van has sent me a jersey. It's coming in the mail. It's the very off-putting color of brown. I'm very excited. Do you have a Fan Control Football team?
I do not yet. I do like the Glacier Boys, but I'm fascinated by this team. This should have been Stars team that Drewski owns, and also because they are also partially owned by Austin Eckler, who plays running back for my team, the Chargers. So theoretically I should be more involved with that team, but I haven't really chosen a team yet. I'm kind of waiting for things to shake out. I'm curious. I want to see, get more player names and personalities and know what's more involved in that way first.
Yeah, it's weird. They're in training camps. I mean, they're there the same. They're mirroring the same schedule as USFL. They're kicking off the same date, which I will never understand for the life of me why they're kicking off. The interesting thing with this should have been, and we never really talked about it on the show. Obviously, they were with the Wild Aces. That was kind of the team I was with last year. Greg Miller was on the show. That was a big coup for us at the time when he was on. Greg and them really soured on the NFT stuff, and so he pulled them, they pulled all the kind of funny, and then the Barb Dunkelman or whatever, they all pulled their support. kind of last minute. I got into a lot of it with the Patrick D's of the world on Twitter about that. I'm like, this was your most vocal champion and all this stuff. And I think they felt like they got the short end of it, that maybe Greg didn't give them a big enough heads up or whatever. So now they've, like you said, they've rebranded. It was Team X. It was should have been Stars. They're coming out. They're one of the non-NFT teams. And then we have the 4 NFT. Fangraphs Football released their schedules this week. It's a 7-week schedule. They released their pricing. So they're building their arena in Atlanta or in Georgia, in outskirts of Atlanta, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah, Pullman Yards. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're very bullish on that. So the pricing they have for this, and I thought this was interesting. Keep in mind USFL, $10 a ticket. You get your whole day's worth of games. $20 GA, standing room only. $49 is reserved seating. Thought it was weird they call it your assigned seats inside the studio audience. I thought that was interesting that a lot's been made of like USFL. But I mean, this is Fangraphs. I mean, this is their press release. For $99, you can get VIP access to a celebrity owner, pre and post game locker room access. I don't know about that with all this stuff going on in the world, but you can get in the locker room, and then playoff championship priority passes. That's $99. $17.50, you can get a suite with premium food and beverage. You get all your same fan day passes. I believe that's all the games. So you'll get you get including the 21 single session passes, private tour, pre-post game. You get VIP parking, and then for $5,000, you get the Ballers Ultimate FCF. You get an official pregame party with all-inclusive food and beverage, live entertainment, 2 hotel rooms, 2 nights. 4 all-access passes. You get to lead the team on the field. You get to do the rock, paper, scissors. You get to do the locker room. You get merch, and you get an autographed ball. Wow.
Yeah. Certainly not a shortage of options for you to spend your money on the league. I'll say that. Look, I think it's fascinating just based on the concept that they've created here. And I think the fact that where it's born from, I think Mark Perry, our colleague, had an interview with the commissioner not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, I think, with Ray Austin. And, I think finally with that interview, I got this sense of like kind of what the concept of the league was supposed to be, which is just you're sitting in the stands and you're calling plays because you don't trust what the coach is doing. And that's great. I think as an idea of being inclusive in terms of like trying to actually be involved in the game, like it's real life Madden, that's really fascinating to me. And I think this is a really comprehensive thing that they have going on here. My only concern, I guess, is in terms of where they're going with this whole NFT thing. I mean, that's obviously their brand, their style. That's just what they're involving themselves in with, and this is what they're doing. But in terms of where they see themselves as a league and how they involve themselves with certain people, like, I don't know what, like their demographic obviously is people who are involved with this side of football, or more like the way more fantasy aspects of it and in the NFT market. But I don't know where that goes in terms of like what they're doing with, like, I don't know. For example, we talked about sports betting earlier, right? So with USFL having to have good rules, good players, a safe environment, and something that people feel comfortable betting on.
Not going to bet on this.
Would you ever bet on this? I mean, look, they're like Ray was talking about how last year there was a game where they were talking about like the replay system, or there was officiating snafu where they came up with something or they ruled on something and the fans didn't like it, and they literally changed the system in the middle of the game. That's bonkers. Like, you can do, I mean, that's fun in games and all that, but like, you can't have people betting on that. Are you kidding me? And then you start having people coming out with pitchforks for a democratic process involving real people. It's one thing to have an officiating crew and to have a league involved where, they're trying in their hopefully best practices, trying to actually create a cohesive product. In this case, it's like, that's something that I don't think people would ever consider doing, just based on the element of chaos. And again, the NFTs is where they're going. Fine, that's their motive and that's their style. But I think they have to understand too, like how niche their market is and how niche they are kind of portraying it to be, and how niche they are going to make it and seem comfortable to do with too. I'm not sure about your feelings on it, Reed, but it seems to me like they are okay with that, I guess, with kind of being in their little box. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there is a marked decrease of interest this year versus this time last year. I mean, a marked difference of. I just remember it was crazy last year because and I don't know if that all equated to views on the actual product. I know they boasted a lot of like, million views and all that. I mean, a lot of that had to do with being on Twitch, being on the homepage. You know, you're like, so I think I remember Jake Henry at some point had shown, you know, because they did like the games would be like a 6-hour block, right? They'd have like both games. I mean, it was so long. And they'd be like, we had, 3 million views or 2 million, whatever it was. And like Jake was able to go on because I believe Twitch provides some of the numbers. And it was like, the average view duration of that was like 4 seconds or something, because it was people going on, like we do a 2-hour show. Our average view time for an episode is not 2 hours, right? If it's like 25%, I feel good about that because you get some are clicking off, some are watching the whole time. You get a balance, right? But having whatever, I just remember it was astoundingly low, like 10 seconds or whatever retention rating for a 6-hour program. I don't see a lot of the excitement this year. We had D's on last year, and then when they came out with training camps and stuff, it was crazy. I just think USFL is taking a lot of that interest. I don't get a lot of people tweeting at me about fan control football. I know that I've upset a lot of them there with our coverage over the time. I felt like I was always trying to be fair with everything about that, but weird this year. And yeah, it's like a niche of a niche. We're okay with that, but we're also competing with like the XFL or whatever. It's a very weird mindset.
Yeah, and again, I know you've pointed out this several times. I mean, they're kicking off the same day that USFL is. So it's like they see themselves as a competitive entity, and that's great, but then they also don't. Like, it's kind of as if they understand who their audience is, and they're kind of catering to that audience. And that's, again, if they know who they're going for, that's fine. But then there's not really this growth pattern of being able to maybe, how do I put it, accept new applications, like having other people come in and join the circle. It's kind of like you have to be in the know and be involved from the outset, or else you're not feeling included. And that to me is just bizarre, because every other league we've ever covered has talked. What have they talked about the most? Getting to younger fans, getting more exposure, getting their product out. The CFL is going through that. The XFL has talked about that. USFL is obviously working on that right now. Every single league that comes out has tried to find some way to get creative exposure and be able to get people more involved. And I with the FCF, it's so bizarre and how like narrow it is in terms of like going through a straw almost, in terms of trying to get involved. And I mean, it's on Twitch and it's on multiple platforms, but it's not the viewership part of it. It's just the inclusiveness and be able to like really be understanding of what's going on. That part I'm kind of lost on, and you've obviously covered it to extensive lengths.
Yeah, I guess my last comment on this today, because we'll get out of here. You've had a marathon session. I really appreciate it. Like, if anyone says like, well, they're not really competing. They're not really. Just this week, they tweeted someone got a fan control football tattoo, and I think it was Ray and Deez both retweeted that. Deez especially did, and he was like, ain't no one getting the USFL tattoo. And I'm like, so I don't want to hear this. Like, well, they're not really, like, they're just doing their own thing. Like, they're absolutely competing. So I wish them luck. I really wish it was not the USFL weekends. I really would want to cover it more, but they have like I said, there's 7 weeks here. You're getting 2 games. So before we go, because this is too crazy. So they have a 1 p.m. session and then a 7 p.m. So you get the 2 games and then the other 2 games, because it's 4 games a weekend. Because it's, at least with USFL, we can split and we can do some on Saturday, some on Sunday. I mean, it's all on Saturdays, right? 1 and 7. I mean, it's a marathon. It was a marathon last year to watch it when it was just the 4 teams and it was 2 games. I mean, it was for them trying to speed up the game and it was so slow trying to watch. And if we're going to do 4 games a night, I mean, that is. God bless those production crews, because I haven't done a lot of sport. Like I do weddings and events. Like I don't do a lot of sports stuff. Even when I was at Q13, like I wasn't the big sports guy, which is interesting now, consider where my life is. Did you know, this is just a side note. I would like to get your take on this. When I started at Q13, Seahawks, just big in town, right? And they hired Russell Wilson and Richard Sherman at the same time, right? And so Richard Sherman was doing a signing at the Dick's Hamburger on Queen Anne. And I went up and they're like, you need to go interview him. And you need to say like, hi, I'm Richard Sherman. You're watching, Cue It Up Sports or whatever it was. And I called him Russell. Because I wasn't a sports guy. Anyway, now Richard Sherman, co-owner of he's with the Glacier Boys, right? Yeah.
I believe so. Yes. I'm surprised he's not back on the Buccaneers or something, like Brady's courting him again. But whatever he wants to be involved with. Like, and again, if they want to get athletes involved in all this, like if they want to build their clout, that's fine. But I'm so glad you brought up the tattoo thing. It's like, okay, I think it's cool to champion your own league. That's great. I'm immensely impressed by how the CFL people go about it. They are so insanely proud of their league, the community, and the people that are involved with it. And they just want their game to be out there. And I totally get that. And, the FCF, I think, has an opportunity to do that. But then it's just this like dart throwing at like other entities. And it's, such as the USFL. And it's like, I'm sorry, like, what are we chasing here? And also how much cloud can you build on from one season on Twitch? I mean, let's be honest. I'm not trying to degrade it too much. They're trying to build towards something, but I do not get the grandstanding sometimes. So we'll see how this season goes. I'm curious, but yeah, to your point about production, Reed, I used to work in AV tech, and I used to do back-to-back games of like different sports. So like maybe volleyball, basketball, football, basketball, et cetera, et cetera. It's crazy just doing back-to-backs. I mean, I cannot imagine like you said, the marathon they're about to go through, and those production staffs are going to be pounding that coffee throughout the day.
Yeah, I was just checking Twitter to make sure we didn't miss anything before we pop off here. Andrew, this has been a tremendous long time. I'm going to have to time code our interview so we can jump around to sections, but I appreciate it. I think we got everything. Anything else from you? We will check out your work on XFL, CFL, and the USFL. I told Mark Perry, because that's right, the Twitter handle now. I said, you got to just own it. It's like it's the Ohio State. We are the USFL News Hub. On Twitter. I guess so, right? I think we should just go ahead and plant our flag. But no, Reed, thank you so much for having me on and going through your own marathon with me. I really appreciate it. So really. Awesome. Well, we have a big interview with William Stanback coming up next. So I hope you guys check that out and enjoy. Thanks. Well, I am thrilled today as someone that's had many a CFL fantasy week last year. One on your shoulders, right? It had a lot to do with it. We have William Stanback here from the Alouettes. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm feeling great, man. Can't ask for better.
So we're off season right now. You came off work. What do you do when you're not training and getting ready to compete for the season?
Well, usually I try to work with kids, back at home in Hempstead. A lot of the guys that went to my high school, Uniondale High School. And I try to just go there, talk to them, tell them what right from wrongs, let them know that I was in their shoes not too long ago, that whatever they want to do in life, just keep doing what you do, grind and put your mind to it. This year, I actually got myself a little job. I'm working at I'm working at a place called Academy, and it has like all the sports gear and everything like that. They have a side where it's like camping, hunting. They sell guns, they sell boats, kayaks, everything. So I just been working there doing the freight and receiving, just to keep myself active, because I haven't really set up anything to work with any kids this off season. So I just try to do that to make some extra money. You
said you're it's a little restless right now, a little boring, getting ready for the season, right? Talk me through that motivation.
Well, I would say it's boring sometimes, like when I'm away from my kids. But, having my children with me every day, spending full-time family time with them every single day of the week, is something I wanted to catch up on because I didn't have them out in Montreal this past season. So being here, having them with me every day is just all I can ask for. just raising them, teaching them, watching my daughter grow. My son's getting taller, and she's starting to run around now. Oh, man, it's just crazy. And time flies. Her birthday's on Tuesday. We just celebrated it yesterday on Sunday because, me and my wife will be working, so we won't be able to do anything for her tomorrow. So, yeah, she'll be 1 year old tomorrow on the 22nd.
So you have a 1-year-old, and then you said you have another child?
Yeah, he's 3. He'll be 4 in August.
Well, congratulations. What is it like, having to be away from them during the season? It has to be hard.
Oh, it sucked, man. I was depressed most of the time, especially when we lost games or whatever. I was coming back to my condo and I was alone, man. I would have some of the guys come. I would pretty much have some of my teammates come over every single day because I didn't want to be by myself at home. FaceTime just wasn't enough, And then when I did get to go home on the bye weeks that we had, I just felt like, my daughter, because she was a newborn at the time, my daughter I felt like she didn't know who I was almost, kind of. I felt like I was losing that connection. But, she got to see my face every day. But like I say, being away from them, it didn't cut it at all, And sometimes I would go into deep depression because when I left for training camp in July last year, she was just born. She was only about 3 months old. So leaving her, leaving my son, leaving my wife, and then they're here, just holding it down while I'm up there in Canada grinding. I just can't wait for them to come up this year. And they're going to be with me this year. So it was just a lot of complicated things going on where I couldn't get a passport for my son and everything. So this year everything will be in order. Everything will be official. And they're going to be at the games with me, rooting me on.
And where is home base in the States for you?
Well, right now I'm living in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, but I'm from Long Island, New York.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing that people, we talk about the CFL players, right? And there's all the, any narrative you want to have about, going up there and playing having to basically split your life and have a whole nother, your friends and family and your kids and your, husband, wife, whatever back home. It's really hard. Do you think that is something that, you are not unique in that, right? Where do you feel like a lot of players feel that way as well, that you can kind of help commiserate with each other and help build each other up?
Oh, yeah. And a lot of guys are in the same situation, believe it or not. When you tell your backstory to a teammate, it's something similar to, something similar to what they're going through. So, hanging out with my guys, especially guys like, Gino Lewis, Vernon Adams, Jess from Antwi. Those are guys I was hanging out with every single day. And, there was somebody I could lean on whenever I was feeling some type of way, with the thought of dang, it's going to be a few more weeks till I see my wife. It's going to be a few more months till I see my whole family, and, them being with me and just continue to push me to be the best player, best person, best father I can be. I commend those guys because they've always been with me and, they helped me get through the season when I was just pretty much up there by myself.
You were talking about the motivations getting ready to come back this year. Before we start recording, I said I wanted to make sure you saved for this. Talk about having another year in Montreal, coming back, motivations to play and motivations to win.
Oh, me, it's gonna be my 4th year with the Owls, man. And I'm really embedded into the system that we have over there. I really am thankful for them giving me the opportunity back in 2018 and letting me work my way up to where I am now. And I appreciate everybody at the front office for that. But, now I feel like it's time for us to win something. We got the same team. We got a bunch of guys coming back. We got some new faces that's going to help us. I feel like that's going to fill in the pieces that we were missing, And I just feel like the camaraderie with the team is just going to be much stronger because we've been together for X amount of years. And me speaking from the offensive side of the ball, I'm with my brothers again, and we ready to ride, we ready to rock. Anybody that's in our way, we just going to have to stomp all over them. And I mean that, from the bottom of my heart, I know we got it. We have the talent in the room. Now it's just putting everything together and just making sure we do the right things.
How disappointing was it falling short last season?
It sucked, and then losing to Hamilton and everything like that. That's a team that, I wouldn't say I don't know if we didn't build a rival yet, but, a lot of guys, individual players, we talk a lot of trash in between those lines. But, it sucked losing to them. That's a great team. It's a great organization over there. And, I'm always going to, give my all when I go against them. And I know they're going to give their all when they go against us. It's all about, I guess, who makes the right calls. It makes the best plays in the game. Because, when we match up with Hamilton, I feel like we're always neck and neck, and I just feel like whoever probably scores the most points will win that game.
It was getting a little chippy there between Hamilton and you guys. I remember that. I remember a lot of stuff was coming out. What is it? Because it did, it seems like all season, but then when it comes to the playoffs, it really did feel like a switch was flipped and people got a little chippy going back and forth.
Yeah. And, that's how it is in the playoffs. Playoffs it can get really crazy and get real wild during the playoffs. And you got to make sure you come with your best foot forward because you will get punched in the mouth. And, truthfully speaking, we did get punched in the mouth. I feel like we didn't come to play like we should have. I feel like sometimes we let the outside noise, take over our playing, the way we play sometimes. I feel like this year we just got to stop talking and just go out there and do it. We don't need none of the negativity and the media, none of that bringing attention to us. I feel like we just go out there, we execute at a high level and just do what we have to do. We will win majority of our games.
How do you stay mentally and physically ready here in the off season to go back up?
Well, mentally, I stay in my book. I'm watching the film still every single day. Mentally, I'm just trying to just make sure that I come in on a different level. Like now I am a real deal veteran in this league at the running back position. And this is going to be my running back room. And I have to take, ownership of that. I have to be the leader for my guys and everything like that. And I have to set an example and I want to set a standard. Physically, just working out, staying in shape, running around the neighborhood. Kind of sucks for me out here in Georgia right now because me personally, I don't have a quarterback to throw to me so I can work on my hands, work on some routes and stuff like that. So I got my brother-in-law, he throws me the ball, but it's not real deal passes down the field and stuff like that. So that's why I can't wait to get out with Vernon. We all supposed to be getting together real soon and just working out, building some tendencies and learning each other. Again, getting back on the same page, So once that comes around the next couple of weeks, I can work on my hands. And I might just stay out there, because I'm bringing my family. We're going to out to his place, and I'm going to be out there for a week. So I might stay there for a couple of weeks and everything and just get in good with my quarterback.
You're going out to the West Coast?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
Vernon is damn near my neighbor. Vernon was on the show a while ago. Vernon's down in Tacoma. We're not that far away, so maybe
wow,
maybe I'll have to come hang out just to peek around at these.
Oh, I did see that. Okay.
Yeah, so that would be fun. They go all the way out. Yeah, it's a long way to go for reunions, Zoom meetings. When Vernon called, I said I could have just driven to you in about 15 minutes, but that's okay. Talk about the leadership that he brings, right, to the team as a veteran, right? You're a veteran. A lot of, guys with a lot of years in the league and how that helps develop the room.
Well, when I came in, I met Vernon in 2018 and, obviously he was a little bit immature. All of us were, I believe that was his second year. And, coming in as a quarterback, they didn't really look at him as the leader type. They knew his talent. They knew what he can do and what he can bring to the table. But back in 2018, they felt like he just didn't have that leadership knack to lead the team and everything like that. But me, I've watched him grow. I watched him become the man that he is today. And, I feel like he turned a lot of things around in 2019. Not single-handedly him doing it by himself, but he was a huge part of that. And me being with him, I see how hard he works and how much work he puts in. I want to be right behind him, helping him out, protecting him. You know what I mean? Making sure that he's doing what he got to do and he's not jittering anything, because I'm always going to be next to him in the backfield. I'm the last person he's talking to right before the ball is hiked. So, I've watched Vernon grow, and I just can't wait to see I already know what he's going to do. I just can't wait for him to show the world what we got here, and what he can do, because he's only getting better. He learned the game. He knows it now. Now it's just going out the field and putting it out there and letting everybody see it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Montreal really had a lot of momentum going in at the end of the season last year, right? I mean, obviously coming up short, but a lot of things to build on and things to improve. And like you said at the beginning, cohesiveness carrying over into this season. Is that where you're putting a lot of pressure on you guys to really, make sure that you take it to that next level?
Yeah, because I feel like that's what everyone expects as well. Everyone knows that we lost twice already, 2 years in a row in the first round. People are people are going to think like, okay, they lost in the first round 2 years in a row. Are they going to do anything to improve that? They're not getting worse. They're just staying right there. Now we have to show them that we have improved with the guys that we brought in, the guys that we signed, and the rookies that's going to come in and help us out in any kind of way, whether it's special teams, offense, or defense. And, man, I'm just so excited to get out there. Like, I'm excited to where I'm almost losing my breath right now. I'm just ready to, oh, man, I got so much that I want to do this year. And I got my guys with me, I'm with them. We all together again. And it's going to be dynamic. It is. It's going to be a really, really fun season. And it's going to be a show, too. I'm telling you, I promise that.
There's been a lot of chatter the last week or so, CFL and, 4 downs and fixing the game, kind of all that stuff. As someone that, what do you love about the CFL game, right? Like I said, I can see the passion on your face. You're excited to go up, excited to compete. I want to focus on the positives, right, and not deal with that. But what do you like about that?
About the 3 down?
And just the CFL game in general.
It's, to me, I believe in this aspect that with 3 down versus 4, it makes the game harder, because you only have a certain amount of times to try to get a first down. Me being a running back, when I first came into the league, I realized that I said, oh man, it's only 3 downs and I'm not going to get the ball that much. But if you have a team where you have running backs that are getting first downs in a 3 down league almost all the time, and you're moving the ball every drive, it shows what type of offensive scheme you have, what tricks in the bag that you have. And most of the time, you're going to go 2 and out almost every single time you're on the field. And for us to be able to, like, I'm talking about the Alouettes, for us to be able to run the ball in a 3 down league, I feel like that shows a lot of dominance for us. And yes, it's a passing league. We're not trying to change that over there in Montreal, but it shows that this game is very versatile when you can run the ball and pass when it's a 3 down league. I feel it shouldn't change, because this is what Canada ball has always been. I've seen a lot. I haven't really engaged into like the conversations and the debates on which one will be better for us and for our future. But I do believe it needs to stay a 3 down league. And I like it because there's so much room on the field. You got so much space to like make people miss. The rules, it can be high scoring games. It can be very low scoring games. It's just different and it's unique in its own way. And me, I obviously growing up in the States, I was NFL. But me playing 2 years in the CFL, I love it just as much as I love the NFL growing up now, And like I said before, it's unique in its own way. And I'm just very like appreciative of being in this league, being like a top guy, being well known. And I just want to continue to be, positive to everyone in the league and the kids that's looking up to me and stuff like that.
Well, and like you said, I think the teams that do run, like with you, like, friend of the show, James Wilder, that's been on, Andrew Harris, like the running backs are dominant because you have to be, you can't just be a mediocre, running back in the CFL. I think the ones like you that excel do it because you are able to capitalize in that game, right? It shows the level that you guys are. And I do believe that. And it's so much harder to do it with the 3 downs. And so when you are able to do it, it does really highlight that.
Yeah, it does. And, running the ball on first down, if you say like you only get 5 yards, and then we try to pass on the second down, we go into the bench now, waiting to punt the ball. And that's the only time it sucks when we can't get the running game going and you're trying to pass and everything all the time. And it's incompletions. It's tough sometimes. But like I say, that's what makes the CFL the CFL.
Well, William, I really appreciate your time, taking time off in the off season. I hope you have fun hanging out with Vernon. Like I said, you guys send me a text. We'll chat. But I really appreciate it and taking the time out of your day. Like I said before the season, it means a lot. So,
yes, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And we can do this again sometime. Definitely.
Sounds good. Thanks, man.
All right. See you. Thank you.
Thanks again to Farhan, Andrew, and William. Really appreciate everyone's time today. Like I said, Farhan taking time out before he's driving down to the Seattle Bellevue area later today. Andrew taking time after work, to come on and fill us in on all the USFL stuff. And then William, taking time off, coming off of work, taking time from training to come on the show. Really appreciate everyone's time going out of their way to help, educate us and build, our collective knowledge and excitement for alternate football like the CFL, USFL, and fan control football. I should have some big, I have my spokes in the fire for some big excitement next week. We'll see if that pans out, but I have some other exciting guests already lined up. So it's either going to be a tremendous show or a abundantly tremendous show. So hopefully we'll get all of that going for you guys. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Remember the markcast.com/watch. You can watch the YouTube channel, the markcast.com/listen. You can listen to the show via any of your podcast apps. And please, leave us a review, the markcast.com/review. Really appreciate your kind words. And make sure you're subscribed on the YouTube channel if you're an audio listener or however that works. Really trying to hit that 2,000 subscriber mark before Birmingham. Don't forget, we have our big live show coming up on April 16th in Birmingham. We're going to be going live from the Southern Kitchen Bar and Restaurant. I've been corresponding with them all week as well, making sure that's all lined up. So that should be really exciting. I think we're going to be there 2 to 4 before the game. Might be going a little bit later. I don't know. Excitement. Is it going to be people logging on all day looking forward to it? Is it going to be more of a game time thing? So we're going to figure out all of that as well. Really appreciate all of your guys' support for watching, listening, thumbs up the video, all that stuff. Thank you all so much. See you next week and take care.